Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the Tinnitus 180 launch event, and I'm your host, Dr. Ben Thompson. Really excited to be with you.
Let's start to see who's here live in the chat. I want to see where you guys are coming from. So um, the chat is open and anyone can go ahead and post in the chat. So I'm currently in New York City. I'm going to say Ben from New York City. Really excited to be here with Treble Health and want to see who else is here right now. I see Colleen from Minnesota. Hey, Colleen, how you doing? Thanks for being here and spending the night with us. I see Neil from Huntington Beach here in his early afternoon. Matt from Illinois, Vicky from Minnesota, Doug from Pennsylvania, Tana, Lori, Jim. So great to see you guys here. Just as we're getting started, I'd like to see in the comment, just in one word here for the Tinnitus 180 launch event. I want to see just in one word, why are you here? What are you hoping to learn or gather from this event? If you could just comment below in one word, maybe that's about sleep. Maybe your issue is related to sleep. Maybe it's anxiety. I see we already have knowledge, someone mentioned. I see hope for habituation. Um, I see relief from Elizabeth. I see information from Matt. So, info from Mary. So, this is all really helpful for us as we're getting started. And, folks, we have an amazing lineup of guest speakers here for you. We're doing 3 hours straight of tinnitus focused live information. So, first up, we have Steve, who will share his own personal journey with tinnitus. It's an incredible story, and then we'll be able to ask him questions. Followed by Dr. Tracy Peck Holcomb, an audiologist from Treble Health. And I see Neil's here for hope. Uh, Dick is here for relief from tinnitus. Tana is here for relief and habituation. Paul's here for reducing his symptoms. Mona is here for relief from spikes. Ben is here for getting and staying asleep. Really glad you're here, Ben. So, all right, we're gonna get started soon with Steve. And yes, this will be recorded. It is live on YouTube as well. So if you want to go back, you can look on the Tribal Health YouTube channel and you can look through the recording. But make sure you're here with me right now so that I can guide you through these amazing presentations. And then I'll be closing out the event here. So in just a moment, we'll bring up Steve. Danielle, who's on our team at Treble Health, just let me know when we're ready to go, and then we'll get things started. For folks who are wondering, what is Tinnitus 180? Well, my team of doctors and I at Treble Health have been thinking over the past year of what is the outcome that we strive for to help people and what is possible in the world of tinnitus. Well, it's possible to turn this condition around and get back to a very normal quality of life. For some people, the main focus is difficulty falling asleep at night. For others, tinnitus has caused anxiety and this constant attention on the sound. For other individuals, it's the spikes of tinnitus or the bouts or the periods of time where the symptom is really loud and it's almost hard to do anything else. So in the world of tinnitus care, when we can provide this support, when we can provide a treatment, the individual can turn their health around and bring the tinnitus levels down over time. So we came up with this program called the Tinnitus 180 program. And part of the event here is to showcase some individual stories of turning health around when tinnitus had turned our life upside down. So I'm excited to go into the stories here. And the first one we have coming up here is Steve. Steve is an individual who lives in Northern California. And I was actually able to meet Steve in person at a recent event that we did in San Francisco. And I see Lori here saying, hooray, turning tinnitus around. Absolutely. That's why we're here. Steve, I see you in the chat here. We're going to bring you up on stage. So just making sure this is the okay. We have Stephen Ram here. Stephen, are, we're going to bring you up as a panelist. And I think we're good to go. So, Steve, if you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone, then we're ready to go, my friend. And as Steve is doing that, I'd like for each of you to, if you haven't already, mention in the chat of your name and where you're from, and the one word of what you're hoping to accomplish here. Steve, welcome to Tinnitus
Thank
180.
you, Dr. Ben. It's good to see you. Can you hear
Amazing.
me okay?
So glad to have you. Yes, we can. Could you please start your video, and then we'll be all ready to go,
Start
get
my
things
video.
started.
Let's see. What do I do to do that?
Yes. So Zoom 101. Who's new here to Zoom? Steve is. So Steve,
Yeah,
what we do,
Zoom 101 is.
what we do is look on the bottom of the screen, and there's a video icon, and click that video icon, and it should say start video. If you're on your computer, that's what it looks like. If you're on your mobile phone, then just click the screen and look below, and you should see an option to
It
start.
says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Got it. All right. Try now, please.
Sorry for let's see now. Nothing's happening on my end now. Okay. You can... All
There
right,
we go.
progress,
Steve, we can see
making
you.
progress. Okay, great, Dr. Ben. It's good to see you. So you see me, I see you, and we're
ready to go. We're ready
beautiful.
to go.
Okay, great.
Steve, please introduce yourself. Tell us what do you do in your day-to-day, just in a sentence or two. And then we'll jump into your history with your ears.
Sure. My name is Steven, and I live in Northern California. I'm in the furniture retail business. Been doing that for decades, family business. And I'm going to be I'm in my mid-50s, soon to be an empty nester. And that kind of gives you a quick little summary of my life in the short version.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you again. We met.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I enjoyed meeting you, by the way. That was nice.
We met in person just a few weeks ago. So, Steve, let's jump right to it. Sure. We have individuals here. Paul says he's here to reduce symptoms. Mona says she's here to get relief from spikes. Dick says he's looking for relief from tinnitus. Neil says he's looking for hope. Tell us a bit about where you are now and what was your journey?
All right, since this is my first time doing a Zoom, so I don't get to, I want to make sure I'm set up correctly here. So the way this is, I don't get to see anybody I'm talking to. I just see you.
That's correct.
And I don't see everybody. Okay.
And we have over 100 people here live and even more on YouTube. So say your message loud and proud.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, it all started for me in June of 21. I woke up one morning and it was like my whole head had been taken off and put on backwards. It was like that time. Imagine being in a movie and you hear the explosion and the person you're watching in the movie loses a bit of their hearing and you hear that high pitched noise, right? That's what it was like. And I panicked. I was hoping that it would go away relatively quick throughout the day. And then as it just never subsided, and I started to just, my anxiety level started to just rise as of that day. I'm going to give you sort of a short version, Ben. I did make some notes, about, so
let's start with that. That sounds
great. So, basically this started in June of 21. And then not knowing really what was going on and not understanding tinnitus whatsoever, I started going to a chiropractor right after that. I connected this to being a neck issue because I'd recently been to a yoga class and I'm thinking, what has changed? So went to I thought maybe that had caused it. So I went to the chiropractor for quite some months, from July through August of 21. And that really did nothing for me. Now, during that time, I'm not doing well. I'm in a dark place. I'm very concerned. My anxiety levels are out the roof. I go to my primary physician. I went and had seen 2 different ENTs and I was getting nowhere. I eventually got an MRI in November of 21. Okay. So June, I wake up with this tinnitus issue. November, I get an MRI. I am still completely and emotionally overwhelmed and I'm not doing well whatsoever. Okay. I also get my hearing test in November of 21. I do the MRI and the hearing test in November. And my hearing test comes back that I have high frequency hearing loss. And the audiologist did mention to me at the time that my tinnitus may be caused by that. But I was in denial at that point in time. I didn't even really know what tinnitus was. I could not connect that what I was suffering from was a hearing loss issue. Okay, so now we're in November of 21. I get the MRI. It comes back negative. There's nothing alarming whatsoever. I'm not doing well from November to March 22. Okay, so that's about 9 months. You go from June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, and into March, right? By that time, Ben, I had been doing a little bit of my own research. I had not come across Treble Health yet, okay? So I'm leading up to something here. I wish I had found Treble Health earlier. So now I'm in March of 22, but I had done enough of my own little research to realize that I'm going to try hearing aids, because I had educated myself that hearing aids were known to help people with tinnitus with high frequency hearing loss.
Correct.
Okay. And then it would come with a sort of a tinnitus masking involved in it, right? Okay. So that's March of 22, and I get the hearing aids, and I have to admit, they do help. All right. I started to sense some little minor improvement. But then in April of 22 is when I come across Treble Health. Okay. And that's where everything really, really started to change for me. And that's really what I wanted to spend more time talking about, was that it was when I came across your videos. Go ahead. Stop me anytime.
Steve, I want to stop you and share about your symptoms at the time. So,
Sure.
It's so beneficial when someone can hear that what they're going through is similar to what you went through, and now you're significantly better. So,
there's no doubt.
Would you mind sharing of how did it affect you day to day, and what were some of the struggles or the challenges that you faced?
Okay, the biggest challenge is that you're in mystery. Okay, you have and there's not much information out there that's of any true value for tinnitus. Okay, but the actual physical symptoms was that really the best way I can explain it would be going back to my example of everybody that's listening. I'm sure you've watched a movie where there's an explosion and then the character loses a bit of their hearing and you hear this high pitched noise. And that's what it was like. Is that real?
Yeah, absolutely. And understood. Okay, so you explained the constant noise you're hearing, and then we have a question here from ST. ST asked, what did you use that helped? What actually helped you? What were the tools?
That's where I really want to get into. This is where things really started to change for me. Okay, is when I started listening to some of your videos, right? Having that as a resource, right? And then understanding the habituation process, understanding the neuroplasticity, right? And then applying the sound therapy, okay? So what I want to emphasize on, and what I want to share with everybody, and everybody has their own way, they got to find their own rhythm and what works. So I'm going to tell you the most essential part of what I found to be the most helpful, okay? So when I got the hearing aids, they were definitely helping me. But when I got involved with Treble Health and I started to apply or implement a sound therapy program, okay, that is really where things started to turn around for me, is when right after I watched some of your videos.
Yeah.
And I went and got the sound machine and I put it next to my bed. All right. And I got into a daily routine. where every day, every night when I get home, because you're sort of in this fight and flight mode, right? Your
Yeah.
anxiety levels are out the roof on this thing. So the first thing I realized I did is when I had the consistent routine of every night coming home and turning on the sound machine and having it in my bedroom. And then what I also found very essential was getting ready, have a successful nighttime sleep routine so you can get good sleep. Now, when I was down in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, I really emphasized the importance of sleep. When you asked me what was some of the things that really were beneficial, right, that I did, and I thought more about that because it's not everybody can. It's a little hard sometimes for a lot of people to sleep. There's a lot of things going on in people's lives and whatnot, right? So I sort of dug a little deeper about what I found really successful to help calm my nerves as I was implementing the sound therapy. Was that one thing that was very consistent? I would keep my hearing aids in during the day. I would have the sound therapy. And then when I came home at night and I took a shower, that would always help me relax. And then I would have a scheduled bedtime routine, right? And I would always watch something that was light and fun and easy to watch. No news, stay off the phone. I watched every single episode of Seinfeld, for example, right? It's got to be something that's easy, nothing suspenseful or whatnot, right? And then when you're watching that and you have the sound therapy at the same time, it's very relaxing as you go into your sleep mode. So I found that to be very, very, very successful over a long period of time. But if
how long until you noticed changes to the awareness of the sound, the intensity of the sound, or even the volume of the sound, Steve?
I started to notice a difference when I was very consistent, okay, on whatever changes I had been making, and I was consistent. I started to notice difference, by June, okay.
So how many months was that?
July, August, right? So if April is when I started working with you guys.
Okay,
And
so a few months,
April, May,
in.
June, yeah. I
Okay.
started to feel that things were starting to slowly change. But I want to say one more thing, Ben.
Yeah.
There's so much I could talk about. I feel a little bit rushed, and that's just because I have a short amount of time. If I had a longer time, I could get more into this, right?
Yeah.
But it's adjusting your expectations. In one of your videos, I remember watching, you had mentioned about the time that it's going to take for your mind, your brain to habituate. And I think you said something about up to 3 years, right? And you said by the third year, you really start to get into you really start to notice a real difference. I remember you saying that in one of your videos. Do you remember?
I can comment on that just
sure,
to
go
clarify.
ahead.
So
go ahead.
So yeah, traditionally the course of a tinnitus treatment is in the first weeks to say about up to 3 months. That's where we would expect some relief. So some improvement, right?
Yeah.
But the job isn't done. So the process of habituation can sometimes take more than 12 months to be completely done.
Right.
And in a small number of cases, it can take years.
Yeah.
So it is that gradual process.
Right.
I don't want everyone here to think it will take 3 years.
Right. That's why I was hesitant on bringing that up. But I remember you saying that, right?
It can take that long.
It can. But once I realized that, right, I had to have realistic expectations, and I had to sort of like brace myself for this new reality of my life. Okay. And that what was I going to implement? What steps were I going to take to go through this habituation process? So when I came across Treble Health and that I knew there was a path forward, I just needed to take the necessary steps to go through this path. But then realizing that there's no overnight quick fix, right? And that I was bracing myself emotionally, mentally, that this was going to take some time and that I was going to celebrate incremental successes, right? So, when I really started to get disciplined about the sound therapy, which is essential. So all of the different activities that I've done, the one constant was the sound therapy. Okay. So I can't emphasize that enough, because that really starts to help calm you down and get you out of that fight, flight, risk mode, right? And then once you're not in that high state of anxiety and stress, it's just so much easier to just manage this on a day-to-day basis, right? So the sound therapy helps you get there. And then having little successes. Now, this is going to sound funny, but I've gone from, you wake up in the morning, that's the first thing on your mind, right? Or wake up in the middle of the night just to go to the bathroom. And so it's 5 steps from my bed to the bathroom, and it was on my mind. But then over a period of time, I noticed that I would make it to the bathroom without even thinking about it. Right. And then maybe a month later, I've noticed that I've gone from going from the bathroom back to my bed at 2 in the morning without noticing it. Right. Those are little tiny successes. So having realistic expectations, bracing yourself that this could take a little bit of time, but commit to the sound therapy,
I think that's a great, I think that's a really important message, Steve.
Yeah.
And just to before we open it up
Sure.
to questions from the live attendees here,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the Tinnitus 180 launch event, share, where are you today? From a scale of 1 to 10, how intense, how bothersome, how intense is your tinnitus? And how did that compare to when it was, at its worst, years prior? Just so we know generally how much better you got.
Okay. All right, that's a good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being good and 10 being the worst, right? We're going to go that direction.
Correct. 1 being I barely hear tinnitus at all. It's not a problem in my life.
So
10 being it's a severe problem.
So let's say, back in June of 21, I'm at a 10. I mean, I was in a dark, dark place, right? Now, in May of 29, I'm down to a 2, 3. All right. And I'll tell you what else, when it's here, when it's there and it's happening, right? Your example of the best is when the candle example that you give. Okay.
Sure.
So,
I can explain that now. Yeah. And first, I just want to credit and say, it took work and consistency with your sound therapy,
really did.
With your neuroplasticity efforts, with your sleep and bedtime routine. And if I can just reiterate one message to everyone here, it's what you said is you changed your mentality from I need to fix this quickly to the best way to fix this is to take a long-term approach.
Yes.
And that helped you get through
100%.
the marathon, as opposed to burning out trying to run a sprint when it actually is a marathon.
Exactly.
We're going to open it up to questions. So I want to see some questions come in the Q&A or the chat for Steve. And then we'll have a few minutes of questions, and then we'll get ready for our next speaker here, Dr. Tracy Peck-Holcomb. So just want to shout out in the chat. We had some amazing stories. Ben S., who shared that his tinnitus was very bad, between an 8 and a 10 in terms of intensity, and now it's more like a 0 to a 3. And Ben had worked with our team, and I just wanted to say hello to Ben and say, we're really happy to highlight that success. So I'm really glad you're here, and thank you for sharing this story. Additionally, we have Michael M., who said that his tinnitus similarly was between an 8 and a 10 out of intensity. And after time, guys, this is not days, this is not weeks, but after months, sometimes up to a year around that mark, now his tinnitus level is between a 0 and a 3. So if there's one message we can get from this first half hour of the Tinnitus 180 launch event, it's that these kinds of changes can happen. So we need to find what's the relative improvement for your individual case, because this all is very personalized. All right, so we have our first question from Matt. So Matt asks, for you, Steve, was the intensity lowered, was the volume lowered, or just the ability to cope and the distress on your system?
The intensity actually has decreased. There's no doubt in my mind, that it has decreased. So I have had the benefit of actually, I can notice it for sure.
Got it. And okay, so amazing. And then did you have an MRI, and did that ramp up your tinnitus? What was your experience getting an MRI?
My experience with it, well, two things. They gave me a Valium, so that relaxed me, which I liked. I was dealing with the
Sure,
tinnitus at
sure,
the time.
sure that helped calm the nerves a bit.
Definitely calmed my nerves, right? But the MRI was disappointing. Didn't show anything, you know? Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
was looking for answers. I was looking for answers.
And the noise of the MRI was manageable.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that didn't
Okay.
bother me at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Michael asks, Steve, did you ever stop using the hearing aids? How did your use of the hearing aids change over time as your tinnitus got
Yeah,
better?
that's a great question. I rarely use them anymore. Okay. Um, and it just depends how I'm doing. There are other parts of life, if I'm tired or fatigued, or sometimes if I'm at my house, and there's not a lot going on, and so I don't have a lot of ambient sounds around me, right? I'll put them on. But
Understood.
yeah, yeah.
Understood. And Steve, I want to give you one last opportunity just to share, a message of hope and optimism. Oftentimes, the internet can be full of scary stories about tinnitus, but just in a few
That
sentences,
is true.
can you provide some hope and some last message here for our community?
Everybody who's suffering from this, that's listening, I have been there, and that's that, and I said it can be a very difficult thing to have to deal with, and there is hope, and I really mean that, and I'm an example of that. That you can make it to the other side. I never thought going back to 21, and then suddenly I would see me in one of your videos as a tinnitus success story. Okay, so that kind of says it all right there, that you can get through this, and all you got to do is you got to follow the sound therapy, and I'm sure there's other things that everybody can do in their lives to get their stress levels down and whatnot, and take care of their body and get some rest. All those things are important. I mean, there's many more things that I could talk about that I found that would be helpful, but I only have a certain amount of time to do this, right?
Thank you.
So,
You've
but if you
shared a
haven't
lot, and
noticed, Dr. Ben, I'm a chatter. I don't mind talking people's stories. It helps.
absolutely. And I know that's why you're here.
I
And
am.
I want to personally thank you for your time. So let's give
Yeah.
a virtual round of applause to
You know,
Steve.
and if
And
there's
Steve,
anybody that
thank you
wants to
so
reach
much.
out to me and talk to me,
Appreciate that.
I have no problem if you want to give out my
Excellent.
personal
All right, so
information.
Steve, what we're gonna do is we're gonna encourage you to jump in the chat here. So
Sure.
you'll be able to answer some questions or share your contact
Right.
information if you'd like, and then we can reach out. So
Yeah.
again, virtual round of applause.
Virtual round of applause. I love it.
Sharing our love for Steve. Steve,
We
we'll
love
catch
you,
up soon.
Ben.
Love you too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're gonna have a quick message here in relationship to the Tinnitus 180 launch event. So, 180 means turning tinnitus around. And what we've seen is that's not only possible, but it's accessible. So, in just for a few minutes, I'll share information about our Tinnitus 180 program, which is new. We're launching it here tonight. A core component of this new program, which is brand new here, is that we're guaranteeing a reduction of tinnitus within 180 days in our program, or receiving a full refund. So what is the Tinnitus 180 program? Well, we came together to create something that, from what we've seen, helps reduce tinnitus and move the needle on the core thing that you're after. So for most people, that's a combination of concentration and being able to focus during the day, getting good restful sleep at night, falling asleep without being so overwhelmed with the sound, and then managing the day-to-day difficulty with anxiety, stress, and the intensity of tinnitus from moment to moment. So the three core pieces of the Tinnitus 180 program, we have first, root cause detection, where we provide an independent assessment of test results you've had, of the history of what you're experiencing, of your symptoms, and we get down to the underlying factor that's causing the sound. And then we provide an appropriate treatment and care plan that's going into that root cause. And that's something that's actually overlooked way too much in the medical field related to tinnitus. There's not just one type of tinnitus. There's different root causes. And we found that when we can isolate that and treat it accordingly, the results show the difference. The second piece of the Tinnitus 180 program here are with smart sound devices. These are customized devices that sit up and behind the ear. We just heard Steve talking about sound therapy. So these devices can be just for tinnitus, or they can be for tinnitus and high pitch hearing loss. And we can customize those devices and program them via telehealth. Finally, the third pillar here of the Tinnitus 180 program is brain retraining. These are Zoom sessions with a doctor of audiology who specializes in tinnitus and can help work you through not only the sound therapy, not only these other strategies, but the day-to-day cognitive and behavioral strategies that can help retrain the brain and helps reduce the perception of tinnitus. So all of this together is what leads to results. Here's Annie, and Annie found relief in the program with Treble Health in 14 days and then graduated from the program in 75 days. I'll share this quote and then we'll jump right into our next guest presentation here with Dr. Tracy Beck-Holcomb. Annie says, Dr. Ramsey, who's an audiologist in our team, helped me immensely during the past months. She guided me through a very dark time during my initial onset of tinnitus. Now she's helping me let go of tinnitus and find the joy in my life. I have my life back and I'm forever grateful. Next up, I'm going to introduce Dr. Tracy Beck-Holcomb with Treble Health. Tracy, so glad to have you here. How was your day?
Busy day, coming right off of patient sessions into this, but it's good because the topic is relevant, and hopefully everybody on here will get some useful takeaways from the presentation. So
perfect. As you're setting up, I'll give some context. So Dr. Tracy has specialized in tinnitus for over a decade, and her focus is with individuals who have often been to other doctors, who have been told there's not much they can do, who have tried certain things on their own. She also specializes in conditions like sound sensitivity, hyperacusis. And what I've seen is that Tracy can help an individual get through the most challenging periods of tinnitus that can seem like it's taking over our lives, and then they can get to the other side. So Tracy, I'll pass it to you. And thank you so much for being here for our Tinnitus 180 launch event.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I think Steve's presentation sort of dovetailed nicely into what I'm going to talk about today. And I think that one thing I'd like to, if everybody feels comfortable in the chat, is if you would be able to, let me just move this over just a little bit, put in the chat quickly what stage. If you've worked with us before, you've seen some of our videos, you're probably familiar or somewhat familiar with the 4 stages of habituation. It's a really common framework that's used as we're working with patients to track and benchmark their progress. And obviously we want to see patients go from stage 1 to stage 4, slow and steady. And no matter what stage you start with us, I think that the presentation today, sort of managing and learning techniques and tools to manage that fight or flight piece of it, because that can pop up at any stage, particularly stage 1. But I think even later stages, you know, as tinnitus fluctuates as we go on, being able to learn and implement consistently some of these techniques really helps with continuing to make progress to get to that final stage where you're fully habituated. Just see a nice range. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. So we have some 1s, 2s, 3s. Okay, so this is great. It's not all the same. So, and this is what we kind of see, like with the patients that we work with, you know, you can enter it with us and start working with us at any stage and still get some really useful tools, really useful techniques to get you to the point where you can say, like, I fully habituated to my tinnitus. I'm back to my normal life. This is not bothering me anymore. You know, it's in the past. Okay. And then same question or another question in the chat, just either thumbs up or a yes, no. How many of you in the audience today have heard of the concept or the theory of the window of tolerance? Okay, So as I'm kind of talking to this kind of sets up my talk, and I use this a lot with patients, especially in the beginning when they first start working with me. So I see a lot of no's, so that's good. It won't be redundant for a lot of you, but this is used a lot in psychology. And the idea being that the window of tolerance, we all kind of function within this green zone. And so when we're feeling regulated, when we're feeling healthy, when we're not feeling super stressed, we operate here. We're able to, it doesn't mean that there's not stress. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that kind of bother us or can make us feel a bit anxious or a bit worried, but we're able to kind of stay within a certain zone that allows us to get back to baseline, right? And so that's where we feel safe and secure. That's where we feel, physiologically we feel good. That's where we're able to kind of self-soothe. We're able to self-regulate. And you'll see in here in this little white part here, some of the ways to sort of stay within that or to expand that window, slow and deep breathing, mindfulness, a lot of the things that we actually work with our patients at Treble Health on as well. And when there's something that is extremely stressful, things that can cause us to go out of that window of tolerance include, significant stress, anxiety, certain triggers, and we're talking today about tinnitus for sure. And so when that gets to a point where it is really intrusive, really bothersome, especially in the early stages of habituation, we get sort of tossed outside of that window up into typically this hyperarousal or fight or flight zone. There's also, I'm not spending a lot of time talking about this today during this talk, but there is also sort of the opposite of that, which is the freeze response. But the majority of patients that we work with, when tinnitus is really bothersome to them, and at initial onset for a lot of patients, we find ourselves up in this hyperarousal state, this fight or flight. Our autonomic nervous system kicks in, our limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain, kicks in. Our thoughts are racing, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling upset, we're feeling overwhelmed. And so when we get up into this hyperarousal state, working really hard to get back down into that optimal green zone, it's really challenging. And that's sort of where we come in. And that's where we start with a lot of our patients. They're coming to us feeling like I've been everywhere. I've tried all these things, nothing's working. I'm seeing some comments in the chat about things that maybe people have tried and that hasn't worked. And so one of the things that we really want to focus on very quickly is giving patients a sense of relief. And so I think there's so much information out there. There's so much content that is not accurate. And I think when you're in that initial fight or flight stage with it, that just adds to the overwhelm. So trying to, do all the things, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks can often cause us to feel even more anxious, which then makes the tinnitus seem more intrusive. So one of the main things that we're trying to do with patients initially is teach strategies, pick the 2 or 3 things that are going to work for that particular patient. And what works for one patient might not work for another, and get you back down into this green zone. The other thing that's important to note with this is that when we are super stressed and we're feeling really anxious, even if we work really hard and we can get ourselves back down into that green zone, it's pretty small. It's gotten real narrow, that window. So it doesn't take much. Like you'll be like, okay, I did my deep breathing today. I did, what Dr. Tracy told me, I did this. And any little stressor, life has stress. And so any little stressor can immediately kind of get you back up into that hyperarousal or fight or flight state. So what can we do about it? And this is just another visual I think is nice, because what this illustrates is that less words, but more visualization, that it's not that there's not stressors. It's not that there's not up and downs. And I actually like to think about this in terms of tinnitus fluctuation too. Tinnitus fluctuations, ups and downs with the tinnitus as you move through those stages is part of the process. But how do we make sure that even within those fluctuations that we've given you the tools that help you stay and sustain within this window of tolerance and not up into this fight or flight zone? So there's kind of 5 areas, and normally or typically in this order is how I work with my patients, although there's some kind of fluidity there depending on where patients are at, if they have a big flare up or something, and we sort of need to backtrack a little bit and touch on some of these earlier sort of tenets. But like I was mentioning, I think the first thing that helps with reducing that overwhelm is the sense of relief. And so even just finding somebody that is a true tinnitus specialist, like all of the audiologists on our team. And, certainly locally, depending on where you're at, there's also tinnitus specialists that you can see in person. But I think even just finding somebody who truly specializes in this area and is able to say, yes, we can help you. Yes, you can get better, and sort of start that education piece, which helps to make it less scary. And I think the other big piece with sort of that initial sense of relief, taking the edge off of that sound that's become really bothersome to you and that's activating that nervous system response, is some sort of sound therapy. And so whether that's, someone ready to jump in with sound therapy devices and getting something that's customized specifically by our team for you, and what your tinnitus sounds like and what's going to work for you. But it can also be something as simple to start, just to get the process started, of auditory enrichment. A sound, Steve mentioned using a sound machine at night, playing a sound therapy app, like anything that's going to start to fill in that gap, and buffer the acoustic space or your auditory space, so that your brain isn't zoning, and focusing locked in on that tinnitus sound. And I think, initially, another thing that helps with that sense of relief, I talk a lot with my patients about neutral language and the language that we describe some of the things that we're going through. So, I hear people say, like, well, all I'm doing is distracting myself all day. I'm just distracting myself. But really, distracting kind of has sort of a negative connotation to it. Really, what you're doing is directed attention. So you are able to, direct your attention to something else, hopefully something that's pleasant, hopefully that's something that you enjoy, because that feeds back to the nervous system and the limbic system that you're okay, that we can manage this, that we don't have to be in this fight or flight response zone. And so, and the other thing is, the sense of relief comes from directed attention, and that your brain can only focus on so many things at one time. So if you are able to shift to something else, it can be even just like physically leaving the space that you're in. If you're just sitting there kind of thinking about your tinnitus, going outside for a walk, like, engaging some of your other senses will help with that, getting that initial sort of sense of relief. I think the second thing that's super important in reducing that fight or flight response is a sense of safety. And so this is for tinnitus patients, but also for my sound sensitivity or hyperacusis patients. We're not talking about avoiding situations altogether. What we're talking about is going into these situations where you feel safe and in control. Having a sense of control, which I'll get to next, is a huge component of our program and a huge component of reducing that fight or flight response, getting you back into that, green zone. So sense of safety, just examples, appropriate use of earplugs. And we talk a lot about what this means, appropriate use, filtered earplugs, not overprotecting your ears, but using them strategically in a way that's actually going to facilitate making progress and getting better. A sound level meter app that you can have on your phone. Again, using sort of that neutral language as much as possible, because internally, I think when we're thinking about things and we're using language or words that are super negative, that are super triggering, like that, the body reacts in the same way. It is going to, if you're saying like, my tinnitus is getting worse, it's never getting better, these spikes are terrible, your body's reacting in response to those thoughts and the language that we're using. So neutral language really helps with increasing that sense of safety. So relief, sense of safety, two huge things that we work on initially, which really helps with bringing us out of that hyperarousal state. Then, once we've sort of taken the edge off, we've gotten a little bit of relief, patients can take a deep breath, like they feel like, okay, I have the bandwidth now. I'm not in a state of overwhelm. My brain isn't just constantly, in this negative feedback loop. Then we can introduce some of these other, I think, sort of higher level, layered on top of the first two strategies and techniques, which really help. But you have to be in a space to be able to do that. If I was to throw at my patients, okay, now we're going to do, a intensive cognitive behavioral therapy program when they're super overwhelmed, it doesn't work. It doesn't benefit the patient. So there is a strategy involved in how you move a patient through the stages of habituation. And so sense of control, I think one of the things that helps with that is just gaining the knowledge and understanding of what's going on with the tinnitus. What is it? Why does it fluctuate? Oh, that's a normal part of tinnitus habituation. That means my brain is trying to determine, like, do I need to pay attention to this? Is this something dangerous? Okay, no, it's not. We can sort of put it into the background. Like, fluctuations is a normal part of the process, sort of demystifying what you're experiencing, what you're going through, what questions you have, what you may have seen on the internet. Hopefully you're not over searching on the internet, but just getting that base, that whole knowledge is power thing really applies to tinnitus retraining or tinnitus habituation, because we know the more you understand and the more knowledge base you have around what you're experiencing and what's going on and how you manage it, helps to make it less scary, which reduces the anxiety and reduces that fight or flight. Then I think, the whole goal of this is to get back to your life. I think a lot of patients initially, stop doing certain things or stop doing a lot of things for very valid reasons of worrying about making the tinnitus worse or fear that it's going to cause hearing loss. Like kind of all these sort of automatic negative thoughts that pop in before we even realize, the effects that that's having on our mind and our body. So controlled exposures is something that I work with my patients on a little bit later. And that is to say, like, if you want to, I had a patient that I worked with who was in sound, and he worked on big music festivals. And so, for him, that was like a huge part of his identity, like something that he wanted to obviously get back to. But jumping from like avoiding all sound altogether and wearing earplugs a lot to going back to doing sound for a huge music festival with hundreds of thousands of people, way too big of a jump. So controlled exposures, we talked about as he was getting better, like what can we do that gets you closer, one step closer, two steps closer to where you ultimately want to get back to, that feels within your control, that feels within your sense of safety, right? Which feels within your sense of progress, which is the next thing that I'll get to, and have it be successful, because anything that you do that is successful, that you enjoy, that you weren't doing before because of the tinnitus that you're now able to do, helps to only reinforce back to your limbic system, again, that emotional center of the brain, back to your nervous system, back to your cognitive brain, that we're okay. We have control over this. We not only have control, but we were successful and we enjoyed this. That all overlays the whole neuroplasticity piece that we're talking about with the habituation to the actual tinnitus signal itself. The fourth is that sense of progress. And my patients, hear me talk about this ad nauseum, but acknowledging and celebrating the wins. And it doesn't have to be huge things. I mean, speaking of that patient, he was like, well, I'm only going to feel like I'm successful if I'm able to go back and do these big festivals. Okay, well, we had to work on how we're thinking about that, the language that we're using around that. And then it became, well, what if you were able to go to a small acoustic set that was outside and do that successfully? Here's the tools that you need to do that. Here's the tools that you need to feel safe. And he did that, and it was great. And then we moved on to something a little bigger. Huge wins, right? And it's how we think about those two. Wins beget wins, progress begets progress. So you just have to start somewhere, and we can coach and guide you through moving to bigger things. Jumping too far ahead, too fast, often has the effect of, slowing down progress. We want to do this really smartly, really strategically with you. And then, of course, consistency with all of these strategies is key. It's a huge component. It's the main component, doing these, coming up with the strategies that work for you, doing them consistently day in and day out, knowing that this takes a while, but it does work. And I think, that's where we can come in to kind of coach and guide. Like, as you move further through the stages of habituation, there is an element of fatigue here. And I think that consistency piece is what gets you to that final stage 4. Which leads me to this last one, which is that sense of acceptance. I think this piece comes definitely in the later stages. I don't really talk a lot about this with my patients who are in stage 1, because I don't think that there's the capacity yet to have like a big conversation around that. But this piece here, that, accepting that fluctuations in your tinnitus is part of the normal process. That's expected. That's okay. It doesn't mean anything negative. Accepting that maybe I can't go back to work and do a huge music festival, 2 months into this, but I can do this. And I think that that's the important thing, is to set it up in a way that's going to be successful for you in the time frame that you're in. And we'll get to those big things at a certain point. So I think, you can use experiential situations, like specific to, something that maybe you've avoided because of your tinnitus, or, a situation where you went and, you kind of regretted going because you didn't feel prepared, things like that. Or we can just replace situation with tinnitus up here and think of it just as a general statement. We know, and I'm sure all of you could school me on what happens when our tinnitus is bothersome to the point where, it kind of invades our thoughts. Like it has the ability to make us think about it way more than we want to, right? And then when we're thinking about it all the time, and we're thinking about it likely in a negative way or a fearful way, what does that do to how we feel, right? How does that affect how we're feeling, what emotions we're feeling? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it fear? And what happens also with the behaviors? How do we react based on these thoughts and emotions? Do we avoid going to things altogether? Do we get to a venue? Do we get to a place? I had a patient who I'm going to talk about later. Her whole journey started with us because she had to go on a work trip and she was at the airport and had a major panic attack because of her tinnitus. And so going back to an airport and the thought of flying was something that she was completely avoiding. She was changing her behaviors because of the fear, the emotions that tinnitus brought up for her. So we had to work through that. And she's a great success story. So she's definitely flying again all the time for work. So that's, I think, one of the takeaways from there. But then I think it's not only the thoughts, right? It's also what's happening in the body. So stress and anxiety manifest not only in our thoughts and our emotions, but also physiologically in the body. And I think all of us, even outside of tinnitus, can attest to this. When we're feeling super stressed about something, typically your body responds in a certain way. It might be really shallow breathing. It might be, sweaty palms. It might be super tight muscles. That, and tuning into that and sort of learning strategies around how to manage that will also help with bringing you back out of that fight or flight. So this mind-body connection, we cannot separate the two. So I think working on one area will definitely have positive effects on the other and vice versa. So anything we're doing that helps to calm the mind and get us to sort of feeling regulated and feeling like we have a sense of control, a sense of safety, some of those things I was talking about on earlier slides, anything that we can do to calm the physiological stress response that happens when we're feeling in that fight or flight zone. Anything that you can do to address both of these will feed back to the brain, to our nervous system, that we're okay, that we're safe, that we have some control over the tinnitus. And even better, if there are activities that have an effect on both, fantastic. So, gardening, baking, things that use obviously your mind and you have to sort of think about what you're doing. And you're using your hands, you're using other senses, you're engaging physical activity as well, in addition to that mind sort of cognitive piece of it. So things that combine both are fantastic ways of regulating your system and getting back into that green zone. And then additionally, for the mind-body connection, sleep is a huge piece. I think Dr. Suzanne's going to be talking about that later in her talk. And somatosensory, there is a certain percentage of patients who have tinnitus that is in part contributing to typically jaw, head or neck input, neural input into the auditory system. Can't discount that mind-body connection. An example of a cognitive emotional technique that we use a lot with our patients is the stop technique. And so I'll go into that in just a second, but then the physiological somatic piece, somatic tracking, or just kind of somatic is just another word for body, tracking again, what's going on. Is your heart rate really fast and rapid? Okay, what can I do then? What strategy can I do to sort of bring that heart rate back down? That's kind of a lot of what biofeedback has to do with: deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, anything that takes into account how your body physiologically reacts. And everybody's different. So identifying that first, becoming aware of what's happening when you're feeling super stressed because of the tinnitus or super anxious, and then offsetting that with some techniques works really well. A really easy one that you can do in the moment if you find yourself just sort of spinning or ruminating on the tinnitus is the stop technique. And so this is something that we use with our patients quite a bit. So I don't want to, let's say 5 minutes. Okay. I want to make sure that I leave enough time. So the stop technique, the acronym, stop, literally I tell my patients to just yell out loud to yourself, say stop, use some sort of visual, hand motion to indicate stop. And it just kind of disrupts kind of that spin, right? It sort of pulls you out of it for a second. Then take a really deep breath, take a few really deep breaths, really slow, controlled, relaxing breaths. Observe, the O stands for observe what's going on in the body, what's going on in the mind, how are we feeling, what's happening, what sensations am I experiencing right now, what am I reacting to? The first P stands for pull back or put it into some perspective. Don't believe everything you think. Our thoughts are thoughts. They're not statements of facts. So the anxiety because of the tinnitus, or the tinnitus causing the anxiety, depending on which way you're looking at it, that anxiety lens really distorts our view on how much we can handle, how much we can cope with, what we're able to do, what's really going on. So I think, having a chance to just step back for a minute, and we work a lot on this with patients because it takes a lot of practice. It's hard to do initially, but viewing things from a little bit of a bigger picture helps in the long run. And then, of course, the last P is practice what works, right? Consistency is key. Back to what I was saying before. What's the most helpful thing for you right now? What's the best thing to do right now in the moment? What can I focus my attention? What can I direct my attention to right now? What's going to be the most effective and appropriate for me? And it changes as you move through the stages of habituation, as life happens, as things come up. What works will change, and being able to be fluid in that and have lots of different strategies and techniques and tools to be able to pull from, depending on where you're at, is really important. So that you don't feel like, oh, I tried this didn't work, now I'm stuck, what do I do? We give you lots of tools, lots of things to be able to pull from that will really work, and we layer them on top of each other, so in a way that moves you through to stage 4. So just a patient example, I'm going to walk you through those 5 things, what she did, how it worked. Again, this patient that I worked with for almost a year, she's the one that I mentioned earlier. She started with having a panic attack in the airport, having to, on a way to a work trip because of her tinnitus, came home. She stopped working, went on disability, was not sleeping, was just stage 1, very early stage 1 when she started working with me. The first thing we did to get her that sense of relief was to introduce sound, but introduce sound in a way that's therapeutic. Sound therapy devices that we fit, using sound machines, using sound therapy apps. It's not just, hey, throw a bunch of sound on and good luck. There's a way to do it that really helps to move things along and give that initial sense of relief, which calms the nervous system just enough to give people the bandwidth and the mental capacity to be able to build on some of these other strategies. So she did sound therapy devices right away. She had her sound machine. She had sound around her a lot in the beginning. For sense of safety, she had some filtered earplugs with us that she got through us that have different levels of attenuation. And initially, right, depending on the situation she was going to find herself in, she used different levels of ear protection or different levels of the filtering to make her feel safe. She did safe social environments at first, again, setting herself up for success and introducing those positive feedback loops that we're wanting to really sort of cement versus supporting and reinforcing the negative feedback loops. So for her, getting back on a plane was like down the road. We were working on like, all right, sense of control. She wanted to go back to the gym. That was something that was really useful for her that she really liked doing. And so we talked about, okay, where your earplugs to go during not peak times when it's not super busy. Don't do the workout class that you did that has really loud music, or the spin class. Have you guys been to spin classes? They're so loud. But still being able to go to the gym, but doing it in a way that is successful and that she feels safe. That's how we started. Riding in the car. All right, we're going to go for a really short ride first. We're not going to go on a 5-hour road trip. So doing them, not avoiding them, doing them in a way that gives her a sense of control, that has them be successful. For her sense of progress, she did a lot of insight journaling, starting to recognize those wins, acknowledging the wins, no matter how big, how small, how silly she thought they were. I had her write them down. We talked about them in sessions. We talked about why they're wins, what happens when you have those. Then the next time, what are you able to do? And it all starts to layer. It all starts to grow into these bigger wins, bigger things to celebrate. And she was super consistent with her program. She did all of these things consistently. And I think the sense of acceptance for her came, as it does with a lot of patients, later in the stages. But, she got to the point where in the beginning stages, if her tinnitus went up, it would cause a complete panic, right? And later, the growth in the progress that she made with doing a lot of these things consistently that we do with our patients, getting to the point where, all right, I understand and acknowledge that if my tinnitus goes up, right? If it fluctuates for a day or two or a week or two, it doesn't mean that it's getting worse. It doesn't mean that I'm going backwards. It doesn't mean that it's a setback or a regression. It is part of the process. She had accepted that. She knows that that's the expectation. She knows that that's a realistic expectation. Using her strategies and techniques to manage through that flare up, maybe, right? Doing the best she could during that time frame, and knowing that it was going to come back down. That acceptance piece is huge, but I do know that it comes a little bit later in the journey. Sorry, I totally went over time. Sorry,
Thank you,
Ben.
Dr. Tracy. That was excellent. And for anyone who may have had doubts at the beginning that this is a comprehensive team we have here, clearly now we know that you guys don't mess around when you're taking care of your patients, right? It's a holistic view on what are the different areas of life that are affected. And when we can get 5% benefit here, 10% benefit there, 30% benefit with this approach, it all cumulatively comes together and really makes a difference. So let's give a virtual round of applause for Dr. Tracy. And then instead of answering questions live, we have multiple doctors on the Treble Health team who are here with us in the chat, as well as in the Q&A. So we'll be able to answer your questions via chat. And Dr. Tracy, if you want to hang out for a few more minutes, please do. So thank you so much. If you have any final words, please share them. Otherwise, I really thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, I actually have to jump to a patient, so I'm gonna get off here. But thanks for having me, and reach out, guys. We can help.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, just a quick word about the Tinnitus 180 program. This is a new program that we're launching tonight, right here at the end of May in 2024. And the whole purpose here is to portray and explain the message that when we can improve tinnitus, we can improve your life, your health, and really turn things around. The three core pillars of our program are, number one, detecting the root cause of what's going on and providing specific details for it. Number two, devices that sit on the ears that are focused on tinnitus. They're playing sound therapy. They're programmed and fine-tuned by audiologists on our team over telehealth. And then number three, the brain retraining program. So all this that you're learning today shows that tinnitus, the neurological condition of ringing in the ears or ringing in the auditory brain, it can reduce and get better over time. So that means we can retrain the system. We can retrain the auditory, emotional brain, nervous system, fight or flight connection in a way that serves us, in a way that reduces tinnitus over time. So how you receive those brain retraining sessions is in a one-on-one Zoom session with an audiologist on our team, like Dr. Tracy or another team member. I'm really excited to share this. This is data that we released this year of 130 patients coming through our program. And we found that 85% of patients who are using what this program is based of, those three components that I just mentioned here, that 85% of patients report reduced tinnitus, okay? So it's not simply the sound itself, it's other key areas that go alongside it too, like emotional distress, where 81% of participants reported improved emotional distress, like sleep, falling asleep, getting good sleep, falling back asleep. 77% of participants, of users here at Treble Health, report improved sleep. What about another key important area, concentration and focus? 78% of patients at Treble Health showed improvements with their ability to focus and concentrate during the day. So a key piece of this, and something that we're just launching here today, is something called the Tinnitus 180 guarantee, where we guarantee results or your money back. How specifically that works is we will measure your tinnitus over time. And if you don't reduce tinnitus within 180 days, you'll receive a full refund. That's how confident we are in our program. Terms and conditions apply, which we can review specifically, but really this is the key message, something that's quite unique and you won't be able to find anywhere else as far as I know. So if you want to get started or learn more, we are accepting 10 new clients only this week. So we do have some natural limitations with how many open slots we have for our doctors. So if you're interested in getting started, we are accepting some new clients this week. And how you can learn more is by heading over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. We will also include that in the chat. So you'll be able to click that link in the chat and check that out. Again, that's treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. You can pull that up on your phone or on your computer. And then I believe that one of my team members is going to post that in the chat here in just a moment. Very good. Thank you, Danielle. All right. So that's it. This is that finishes Dr. Tracy's presentation. Let's now bring on a very special Treble Health patient, Lisa. So Lisa, thank you so much for being here. And you have 100, I hope you're okay with, digital public speaking, because you have 150 people who are here on the Zoom, and you have 40 more who are live on YouTube. So as I mentioned, we're here to share hope. We're here to learn about what helped you, and then really how you did it. So Lisa, would you mind sharing first, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do for work, family, where do you live? And then we'll go into the details here with your tinnitus.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm glad there's a really strong crowd. The more the merrier. I love a big party. So I live in Boston. You'll figure that out soon enough, as soon as I, say a few sentences. And I am an auditor and an accountant by trade. I do a lot of like fraud work, investigations, things like that. And I am married to I feel like I'm on Wheel of Fortune, to my wonderful husband, Will, and we have a almost 10-year-old yellow Labrador who is our child, and yeah, just having fun and loving life. So
thank you so much. We're really glad you're
Sure.
here. So let's jump straight into it. Give us some context of where you are today with your ears. And I think using the 1 to 10 scale of severity is the most helpful. Where you are today with your ears, with your symptoms, and then where you were when things were at their worst. Let's just start there.
Yep. So today, at a 0.5. Some days I'm at a 0, some days I'm at a 1, but right now probably 0.5. At my very worst, I was at a 10, consistent 10, lasted probably a few weeks straight, which was the debilitating, first beginning of the journey for me.
Everyone here is looking to know a little bit about what, the tools that you used along the way. So when you look back at that journey, what were the main tools that did a lot of the work and helped you out the most when you look back?
So for me, so I'm an auditor, I'm an accountant, I'm a very facts-based person. So for me, starting the journey and not having the knowledge of what is this, what's going on? Am I stuck with this? Is this going to be with me forever? How am I going to live my life? How am I going to keep working? How am I going to support my family? All of that. That was what brought on, the fear and the fight or flight and all of that. But for me, the very first step to finding relief was finding the experts, right? And finding, because everybody goes through the MRI, going to the ENT, being told there's nothing you can do. All of the Google research. I spent many, many hours with Dr. Google trying to find out answers. But the very, very first, light at the end of the tunnel for me was when I found Treble Health, and I did the introductory call, and then I actually participated in the fall summit last October. And I said, this is it. This is where the experts are. And immediately, the process of healing started for me.
Tell us about that process, and how fast did it happen? What were you doing at the time? I imagine it wasn't just information or knowing something could be done.
Yeah.
You actually had to do something, right? So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So I started, I've always had a kind of low level tinnitus since I was a teenager, probably attributed to loud rock concerts, blaring the radio, stuff like that. And it was always in the background, kind of there's a refrigerator running in the background or dull power lines. And then last September, a perfect storm of different things happened. I can't put my finger on anything in particular, but it just started blaring off the hook. And I had started going to physical therapy because my neck had tweaked out, my shoulder was killing me, and the physical therapist was doing these really deep tissue massages, and she was really working all of these muscles right here and then way up in the back of the head and the neck. And I remember leaving the physical therapist one day and I had silence, and I had gone through this level 10 for days and days, and then I had silence. So I started putting together that there's a connection between the back of my head and then the noise level. And then I put it together that I also get migraines. So then I put it together that what she was doing was working out a migraine or working out headaches, which was also reducing the level of the tinnitus and the sound. And so I also started acupuncture, which I still do. I go every 2 weeks to acupuncture. I love it. And the acupuncturist was really working on the migraines and the tinnitus as well as just general stress and general like mind body energy work. So that was great as well. When I got involved with Treble Health, I got assigned to Dr. Suzanne, who is just completely and utterly amazing. I can't say enough good things about Dr. Suzanne. Her whole energy is calm. She's such an expert. And she answered all of the fact-based questions for me. What is my brain doing? One of my big fears was, is this going to get worse as I get older? If I'm at a level 10 now, am I going to be at a level 500 when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old? But she said, no, it's going to get better because we're going to work on it and you're going to find relief and you're going to have your tools. So I started the sound therapy right away with her, and I would wear the maskers every day, wake up, get ready for work, put the maskers in, and I would wear them from like 9 to 5 or 9 until 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. And then the interesting thing that was happening was the more I wore them, I started turning the volume down on them. So I would put them in and they would be at a level 5 or 6 for the sound, masking them. And then I started turning the volume down. So then I noticed, I don't need it at a 6. I turned it down to a 4. Then I turned it down to a 3. Then I started finding over the course of a few weeks, I was putting them in later and later in the day or taking them out earlier and earlier. And I said that to her one day and I said, this must be working. Is it working? Like I'm turning the volume on them down, or I don't need them as early in the day. And she's like, yep, it's working. And so that was just, the epiphany for me was that, yes, the sound is coming down. It's getting better.
How did that feel? What did that mean to you to reach that moment?
So the first kind of level 10 debilitating period of time, it was about 3 weeks worth of time. And I would just be up at night and I, couldn't sleep, and I would just be squeezing my husband's hand so tight in bed and like, oh, this is like, what is going on? And, petting the dog sleeps in the bed with us, my 10-year-old child, and, petting her and just kind of feeling her fur and feeling her breathing and stuff. But, just all of it just felt relief. It just was like, okay, the sound is coming down. Like this is what they said was going to happen, and it's going to happen for me.
We have a question right now. I think is timely. Maggie says, I don't understand the sound therapy devices that you use. How can adding more sound help reduce the tinnitus?
Yep. So what happens is you put the maskers in. The maskers are programmed to your specific pitch, tone of what your tinnitus is. And so for me, water noise, like a water noise, or the shower, or the running sink, that would cover my tinnitus. So Dr. Suzanne programmed that, and I put it in, and I would listen to that over my tinnitus. And so it's basically
Would it be completely louder, or would you still hear the tinnitus?
it would be one level above your tinnitus. So it would mask the tinnitus. So it would be slightly louder than your tinnitus. And what that does is and all of the professional audiologists can correct me if I'm wrong, but it teaches your brain to know the difference or recognize the difference between real noise versus fake noise, and kind of de-escalate the severity of the fake noise and put it in the back of your brain so that it's not a threat anymore, and just pay attention and focus on the real noise. So your brain basically, through the neuroplasticity.
I want to just add something, because just a correction. So
okay, thanks.
The settings of the sound therapy are one level lower than the tinnitus.
Oh, okay.
As a default setting, so that really they're not fully masking, right? Fully covering and masking so you don't hear it is not the optimal setup. And I actually don't believe you had it set up that way based on
You're right.
based on my knowledge of what was happening.
Yep.
And obviously based on your results as well. So mixing the sound therapy in with the tinnitus over time so that the brain can learn to reduce the tinnitus. That's essentially what happened for you. So I just wanted to add that. So continue on. So you noticed these benefits, and yeah, go on.
You can see that I haven't worn my maskers in a long time, so I don't even, fully recall what the process was. But yeah, thanks for the correction. Yeah, and so the other things that Dr. Suzanne and I worked on were in the initial phases of not being able to sleep. So we did, there's some really nice breathing exercises that she taught me. My go-to still to this day is you use your finger or you use your hand, and when you breathe in, so you inhale and then exhale and then inhale, and then so you're tracing your fingers, and then you're also breathing inhale, exhale like this all the way around. And I visualize that when I'm trying to fall asleep, and it works great. Just visualizing the inhales and exhales while you're tracing your fingers.
What does your tinnitus sound like?
So my tinnitus is all different sounds. So when I have a differentiation between migraine days and headache days and non-migraine days. My normal tinnitus is just a hissing, kind of tea kettle in the background type noise. When I have a really bad, severe migraine, it is both ear, and it's only in the right ear. But when I'm having a headache day, it's both ears, front, back, different sounds, different tones. And I call it the really bad middle school band, just following me around. And
I'm sorry. I'm glad that it got better. I'd like to hear from others in the chat of what sound do you hear? Do you hear ringing? Do you hear hissing like Lisa did? Do you hear white noise? Do you hear, electrical noise, static noise, tea kettle? Let's share in the chat of what you're hearing, just so we can get a sense. All right. So Lisa, basically what you're describing is, first stage here, you're struggling, didn't really know what to do. Second stage, found some resources that were starting to help. You tried a little bit of some holistic components that did a little something. And then you met with Dr. Suzanne at our team at Treble Health, and you started a formal program where you use sound therapy, and you met with Dr. Suzanne for one-on-one sessions. What I think is hard to communicate to people sometimes, or hard to imagine, is what can you possibly do to tinnitus simply by talking to someone? So you mentioned here that you're learning different breathing techniques. Okay. You mentioned that you're getting advice. So, for someone who hasn't met one-on-one with a specialist like Dr. Suzanne, can you share some tips of what you learned so that we can get some value from your time with her?
The thing that I loved about Dr. Suzanne was that she was very, very good about explaining the physiology of the brain, how everything's connected, what is happening, So something that triggers my tinnitus is changes in barometric pressure with the weather. And I would ask her how that, it's raining. I can hear the rain coming. The full moon, my tinnitus fluctuates when there's a full moon cycle. And she confirmed that all of these things were physiologically changing the tinnitus, the volume of it, and it's just temporary fluctuations now at this point. So one of the things that we worked on was the concept of better days are ahead. So, I might be having a bad day, or not a bad day, because we use neutral language. I might be having a fluctuation one day, but then the next day, a better day is going to be ahead for me. Yeah. And just having the expert where you can kind of validate and whether or not things are triggers or things aren't triggers, or have you heard of this? Have you not heard of this? And so for me, it was really her help to get to what my root causes are, and, know how to plan for them at this point. I can look at the weather report and I can say, all right, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be clear days, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, those are going to be thunderstorms. So, I can plan for a fluctuation. And
what's really fascinating here is that if someone with tinnitus just dropped into this conversation for 5 minutes, they might think, I've got to talk to my doctor about the weather and see if that's related to my tinnitus. But in most cases, it's not. And I think what it highlights is that there's different types of tinnitus. Like you mentioned the word root cause. There's different root causes. Sometimes people have multiple going on at the same time. Most commonly, it's a slow progressive change in hearing function, slowly progressive hearing loss, plus stress on the central nervous system. And all of that coming together can create and manifest the symptoms of tinnitus. So just wanted to address that everyone should speak to a specialist. They should pursue different potential angles here, but I don't want everyone to start thinking that their tinnitus is modulated by the weather, because in fact, that aspect of your case is a fairly rare one. Is that how you understand it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I think everybody should be tracking if they have fluctuations. I tracked mine. I would track, every day what my volume was, what was going on, what my mood was, if I was stressed, what the weather was, who I spoke to, if they, caused me any kind of stress or aggravation or things like that. And so I was able to kind of hone in on what my volume triggers were, which is headaches and migraines, due to changes in barometric pressure and weather events, really.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Guys, we're going to open it up to questions here in a moment, followed by a quick introduction to Dr. Suzanne May, who will then give a presentation on sleep. Very exciting. So Stacy has the first question here, and then Lori. So Stacy asks, how long did it take to notice a difference? Essentially, when did you first get those signs of relief after you started the program, whether it was our program or something else that you tried?
Probably within 2 weeks, I started noticing a difference. I was using the maskers for the majority of every day, and then probably within 2.5, 3 weeks, the sound was coming down really, really nicely. And then probably within like 3 months, I think that I started not needing the maskers every day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quick.
And how long previous to that were you struggling without too much change? Months?
No, only about a month. Only about a month's worth of time.
Understood.
September of 2023. And then once I began the program, I think it was October of 2023. Yeah. So I didn't waste any time. I didn't have time to,
Understood.
I needed
yes.
to get this nipped in the bud.
Understood. So it was relatively new symptom. Sometimes what can be tricky for people is they wonder, okay, how much better is this going to get on its own? When do I need to do something? And they can be sort of stuck in this phase of, well, it's better than it was, but it's not where it needs to be. And I know there's a lot of folks here who are watching this, so I just wanted to validate them. All right, so next question is from Lori. Lori asks, how do we know what specialist we should go to first? So Lori, often a lot of folks already have gone to get a hearing test. They've, the logical place is, let me go to my local ENT doctor, my ear doctor, in my local town, and get it checked out. Is there something physically wrong with my ear? And oftentimes those appointments, they rule out any sort of medication option or any surgical option for the tinnitus. They'll also do a hearing test. So that's a solid place to go to first. Another option, if you have or have not been to that option quite yet, is to go to Treble Health. We offer a consultation, and one of my team members here will include a link there in the chat in our live call where you can access a free consultation with a member of our team. Okay, we'll answer a few more questions here. Lisa, let's do 3 questions rapid fire. So question from George. George asks, did you have to wear the hearing device on your ear all the time, and do you still wear them?
When I first started, I was wearing them, pretty much the whole work day. And then, through after dinner and when you're just kind of sitting and chilling at night watching TV. I only wear them now when I'm having a fluctuation, which is only maybe a couple times a month. Yeah,
Understood.
not very often at all.
Understood. Really glad to hear that, by the way. All right, so next question here.
Can I also add a quick
Go ahead.
comment on
Yep.
the other, the point that you were making about the other tests and stuff? So for me, I had seen, in addition to the ear, nose, and throat, I had seen an allergy specialist because they said maybe it's due to allergies. I had seen a spine specialist. I had seen a physical therapist. I had seen I got a CAT scan and an MRI. So I had seen a whole bunch, and an orthopedic surgeon, because I felt like it was tied to my neck and everything. Yeah. So, and obviously neurologist. Yeah. So I had a number of different tests.
That's really important. That's really important. Lisa, I want to give you an opportunity to share your last message here. You've clearly improved with tinnitus quite a lot, and it was very, very challenging for over a month, right? So just what is your final word here as you're donating your time and so graciously helping others? What is your final message here for tonight?
I want everybody that's really suffering, just to have hope. There is hope. Better days are ahead. And my one message is that you control your tinnitus. Your tinnitus does not control you. You control it. The more work that you do, the more control you have over it, and the better it gets for you.
Love that. Let's share some virtual round of applause to Lisa. We really are glad that you've decided to donate your time here tonight. We have some hearts, we have some applause, we have some thumbs up. So Lisa, really appreciate this, and hope to check in soon to know that your results have maintained.
Thank you
so much.
Appreciate it. Bye.
We have a short message here from about our team at Treble Health, and then we'll bring on Dr. Suzanne May, audiologist, who Lisa worked with, and we'll be able to go to next steps. So guys who are following along, we have our program here. It's called the Tinnitus 180 program. This is our special launch event, and you can work with one of our great doctors. On the screen here, you see myself, as well as Dr. Suzanne May, Dr. Tracy Peck-Holcomb. We only have tinnitus specialists on our team. We're focused on the specific care and the specific tools that help you. And those tools include the root cause detection, the smart sound devices, and the brain retraining program. That's where you get to work with the world-class expert. And here's a few from our team. For those who are interested in becoming a new client with us, you can head over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180, and we will include that link in the chat here as well. So once again, that's treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. We only accept 10 new clients per week. So if you are interested, that could be you. We'll include the link below and you can explore more. Next up, I'd like to introduce my wonderful colleague, Dr. Suzanne May, audiologist. Suzanne, I hope you had a rewarding day of seeing patients, and that you're ready to share with us the your top tips for sleep. First of all, I'll just ask, how was your day, and then we'll jump into the presentation.
My day was fantabulous, actually.
I love that. I love that. And for those who don't know, Dr. Suzanne not only works full time helping her patients with their tinnitus, but she also has had a period of life where she overcame really challenging tinnitus herself. And what this means is that she has the education, the theoretical knowledge, the skills and what's needed to get her patients over the finish line, but also the firsthand experience of what it's like day to day to go through the treatment process and to go through the stages of relief and habituation. So it's my great honor to introduce Dr. Suzanne here to share with you all about her top tips for sleep. So definitely stick around. We have 2 more presentations after this, including my own. Dr. Suzanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. Hi, everyone. As Dr. Ben said, I am Dr. Suzanne May. I'm one of the audiologists here at Treble Health, and I'm going to share my screen with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Can.
As you're getting that up, I can just also add that for those who are here with us live, we will have this recorded, so you can check out on YouTube live under the Treble Health account, where you can see the full recording if you needed to step out for any reason. Everything okay over there, Dr. Suzanne?
Yep, I'm just going to pull it up right now.
Awesome.
Ta-da.
Perfect. We can see it, and you're all set.
Excellent. All right. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about tinnitus and sleep. We're going to go over some basic strategies of what you can do to help you with sleep. The first thing that we recommend here at Treble Health is if you find yourself struggling with sleep, we do recommend that you talk to your doctor first. Make sure that you don't have any medical issues that could possibly causing you sleep disturbances. Want to make sure that you maybe have a sleep study, rule out any sleep apnea. And you can also talk to your doctor about possible supplements and medications that might help you sleep better. So wanted to kind of start off with that. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was this kind of pattern that can happen with sleep when you have stress, normal pattern versus insomnia. On the left, you're going to see that the normal sleep pattern with stress starts off with having some stress, which results in a decrease in sleep. Your body and your brain do adapt to that stress, and this stress can also go away in a normal stressful event, and then your sleep improves. When you start developing chronic insomnia or difficulty, you're going to have stress. And in our cases, this is going to be tinnitus, which is very stressful. You're going to have decreased sleep. But what happens is our brains start to have some behaviors and beliefs about sleep change. And those behaviors and beliefs result and reinforce this hyper arousal state that we can be in and cause us to be more wakeful. And then our sleep continues to be poor. So what I'm hoping to do is try to give you some tips and tricks today to see if we can kind of change this cycle into returning back to better sleep. So I think the topic said 4 key points for better sleep. I think I actually have 5. I might actually have 6. And so in general, there are 5 key points for better sleep. We want to increase our sleep drive. We want to create a bedtime routine. We want to set up our room for success. And we want to use sound therapy, especially when you have tinnitus. And you want to use some relaxation techniques. So those are in general. We're going to go into a deeper dive one by one here. So first, we're going to talk about sleep drive. What is sleep drive? Well, basically, it's your need for sleep. When we have been awake for a long period of time, our sleep drive tells us that it's time to sleep. As we sleep, our sleep drive actually diminishes and we become more awake. Kind of makes sense, like a teeter-totter. So in this example of the teeter-totter, what we want to do is we want our sleep drive to be so big that it's overtaking our wakefulness system. And so that way we can help Lily fall asleep. So there are some things that we can do to increase our sleep drive. This is going to include having a regular wake up time. Now, this is not everyone's favorite thing. When I tell them, that means having a regular wake up time means days that you are on work, also days that you are off of work. You want to try to be waking up at the same time every day. This is going to help your body get on a regular schedule and a regular cycle, and it's going to help our bodies know and our brain know, okay, this is the time to wake up and this is the time to go to sleep. The number 2 tip is exercise. Again, not everyone's favorite thing, but you can make this kind of simple. You can go for a walk, you can go for a run, you can do some push-ups, maybe some sit-ups. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get our body tired. We're trying to get our brain tired. And so exercise is an easy way to increase our sleep drive and make it easier to fall asleep at night. Number 3 is limiting or avoiding naps. Now, while naps can kind of perk us up if they're short and sweet, if they're too long, they can actually make us feel sluggish and they can decrease our sleep drive. They can throw off our schedule and they can make it harder for us to fall asleep at night. So I always say try to, avoid or limit naps, or if you do need to take a nap, take something short and sweet, just enough to get you refreshed. Number 4 here would be light therapy. Now, the easiest way to get light therapy is to go outside and get some sunshine. If you are in an area where there's not a lot of sunshine, maybe you have a lot of cloud cover, there's also light therapy boxes that you can, if you Google search light therapy box, you can find lots of different options. But light therapy has shown it's basically telling our brain that it's time to be awake. It's time to be alert. And the sunshine supplies us with vitamin D. It helps our immune system and even our mental health. My only thing here is if you're going to go outside and enjoy the sunshine, just make sure to wear some sunscreen. And then, of course, last but not least on this scale here for sleep drive is melatonin. Using melatonin at night, that can actually help increase our sleep drive because it's a hormone that our brain naturally produces in response to darkness. It's going to help us regulate our internal clocks, and you can take this with a supplement. But other ways you can help increase natural melatonin in your brain is by dimming the lights at night before you go to bed, or you can even go outside and you can look up at the night sky, and that's going to produce some natural melatonin. So there are some good ways to get some melatonin going in your body, making you feel a little bit more sleepy. All right, next on our list is a routine. So to work on sleep, we need to start by building a routine. And we kind of need to start a few things during the day. First, we need to stop caffeine, excessive use of caffeine. I'm not going to say get rid of caffeine because we all love our cup of coffee. I love tea. But excessive use of caffeine results in a lot of things. And you want to kind of try to decrease your amount of caffeine, especially after lunchtime, especially as it gets closer to bed. Extra caffeine has been shown to reduce total sleep time by up to 45 minutes. That's almost an hour of your time that it can reduce. Let's not have caffeine steal your sleep time. It can reduce your sleep efficiency by 7%. It can increase our sleep onset, how long it takes for us to fall asleep, by up to 9 minutes. It can increase our wake time for sleep. So we actually wake up earlier than we normally would by 12 minutes. And it can block deep sleep by 20%. So if you kind of start adding this all up, the 12 minutes that it takes to fall asleep, reduce sleep time, you're talking over an hour of time lost because of excessive use of caffeine. So one tip I can tell you, try to reduce your caffeine. As it gets closer towards the evening time, you're going to want to start dimming the light. Again, that dimming of lights is triggering our brain that we are no longer active and awake. It is triggering our brain to produce that natural melatonin. And it's telling our body, hey, it's time to switch into nighttime mode. It's time to switch into sleep mode. So dimming the lights in the house is a really good way to increase melatonin and help us know that it's time to sleep. You're also going to want to turn off your electronics. So, or use blue blocking light glasses. Electronic lights have been shown to tell our brain that we're active and awake. And we're trying to tell our brain it's time for sleep. So if we can get away from that electronic light at least 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime, you're going to be more successful in falling asleep. So now what do? You know, you've dimmed the lights, you've turned off your electronics, but it's not quite ready for bed. You're not quite ready for bed yet. So what do? Well, I usually recommend doing some wind down activities. This could be something analog. Doing a word search, a crossword puzzle, reading a book. You can stretch, you can do deep breathing exercises, you can meditate. These are all really good ways to kind of just relax our bodies and tell us, again, our brain, we're winding down, we're getting ready for bed. And then last but not least on this routine is a normal bedtime. So just like a normal wake up time, we want to have a normal bedtime because again, we're trying to trigger our brain. This is the time we go to sleep. So for me, it's 10 o'clock at night is when I go to bed. 6 o'clock in the morning is when I wake up. I stick to that routine consistently, and that's going to be key because again, you want your body having that circadian and you want it to be on a consistent schedule. All right, next on our list of tips and tricks is setting up our room for success. So you're going to want to keep your room on the cooler side and have it be as dark as possible. So you're going to dim any electronic lights. I can dim my alarm clock. Sometimes you might want to cover it up with a cloth. You're going to want to put up dark blackout curtains. You're going to want to set your temperature to maybe be 68. You don't want it to be too warm. When it's too warm, it's hard to sleep. So setting your room up for those few things are pretty easy to do. You also want to make sure that you have a good mattress, that you're comfortable, that you're not getting poked by any springs or any loose materials. You want to make sure that you have a very good supportive pillow for your neck and your head. And you want to make sure your blankets are comfortable. They're nice and soft, but they're also appropriate for the season. So if it's summertime, you're going to be using some cooler, lighter blankets. And if you're in the winter, you're going to be using some heavier blankets. I usually also recommend for people who have tinnitus to have some kind of tips and tricks next to their bedside table. Some of the things that I use for my tinnitus are that I have aromatherapy sticks that you can buy off of Amazon right on my bedside. So that way, if I wake up and I hear my tinnitus, I reach for the aromatherapy, I give it a little smell. My sense of smell is kind of engaged into whatever that scent might be. I usually have like vanilla next to my bedside, and that helps kind of distract my brain away from my tinnitus. The other thing that I have on my nightstand is my water bottle. I have a Yeti, so it keeps the water nice and cold. I have ice water. That cold sip of water is a temperature change. And so now we're using our sense of touch, we're using our sense of temperature. Again, it kind of helps get us out of tinnitus mode and thinking about how cold that was that it kind of shocked our body. So those are some tips and tricks that I have for setting up your bed. And then another one that I don't have on here is that if you are feeling fearful of the room or you're fearful of sleep in general, one of the things I do recommend is maybe changing up your room a little bit. So moving the furniture, that it can be as extreme as that, moving the furniture, changing the color of your comforter, putting up a plant, something like that is going to help kind of make it look different. So that way, now when you come into your room, it kind of just takes your brain a second to process and takes away some of that fear response. So that's another little trick if you're feeling fearful of sleep. All right. Moving on to one of my favorites, which is sound therapy. Now, in your room, when you have tinnitus, you're going to want to have sound therapy. I do recommend it. And there are, if you're a patient with us, you know that there's some kind of sound therapy rules that we ask you to kind of follow during the day. Well, at nighttime, you can kind of throw those rules right out the window. Because at night, we're just going to have you use a sound, anything that you want to help you sleep. Beginning, sleep is the most important thing. So it's okay at the very beginning to go ahead, if you can, cover up your tinnitus, use a sound that is the most helpful for you. And there's lots of different sounds out there. One of the machines that we have available is the Sound Oasis. And the Sound Oasis is a little speaker that can sit in your room. It comes loaded with about 20 sounds. Plus, it does have an SD card that can be loaded with other sounds on it. I believe it also has Bluetooth, so you can stream from your phone. And it's quite a fun little speaker that you can have a bunch of different sounds on. Now, if the speaker is something that would disturb your significant other in the room, you can switch to the sleep headband. Now, the sleep headband does have some speakers in there, and the speakers are right, it goes right across your head. And this does Bluetooth to a smartphone or a tablet. And then you can use apps or YouTube or Spotify to stream in any sound. And that's going to be something that you hear directly. There's some great apps out there, such as Resound Tinnitus Relief, My Noise, and of course, I've got to plug the YouTube Treble Health Sound Therapy channel, which there's been a lot of work behind the scenes with Dr. Ben on that. He's got some great sounds on there for sound therapy. And another fun one is on Spotify. There is a podcast called the Sleep Pod, Boring Bedtime Stories. And it's a podcast, and it's a very boring narrator telling very boring stories. So he has a very monotone voice, and he tells a very boring story. And anytime I've listened to it, it's made me fall asleep pretty quickly. I can't keep my attention on it. All right, next technique we've got is relaxation techniques. When you're trying to go to sleep, we want to have some, or maybe you've woken up and you're trying to go back to sleep. Some relaxation techniques can help you with that. So progressive muscle relaxation is a technique where what you do is you're going to flex a muscle group as you're taking a deep breath in through your nose, and then you're going to release that muscle group as you're breathing out through your mouth. So for example, you're going to squeeze your toes really hard, breathe in, and then as you release your toes, you breathe out. And then maybe you're going to flex your ankle, right? And then you're going to squeeze your calves, and you're so on and so forth, working your way up your body, landing at your face and squeezing your face as tight as you can, relaxing your face as you breathe out. And it's a really good way to relax all the muscles in your body. There's also deep breathing techniques. There is a whole lot of different deep breathing techniques. I personally like one called 5-finger deep breathing, which is where you have your hand and you're basically tracing your hand. And anytime you trace your hand up, you're going to breathe in. And anytime you trace your hand down on the finger, you're breathing out. So we breathe in through our nose and then out through our mouth. And what's nice is it counts for you. It's tactile. You don't have to see what you're doing. You can do it under the covers. And it's an easy one to do to kind of help us fall asleep. When you're deep breathing, some things that happen to your body are you are decreasing your heart rate, you're decreasing your stress cortisols, you're increasing your oxygen intake, you're decrease your heart rate, and your body tells your brain, I'm relaxed. And so that's just kind of another piece of the puzzle that your brain needs to know, okay, I can fall asleep. If you find that you are spinning your brain in circles, you can try counting backwards by 3s. That's not one that's easy for me because I don't like math. And there is also the military method. This is where you can try to relax all the muscles in your body as if you are melting into the bed, and you're going to think the words in your head, don't think, don't think, don't think, over and over again until you fall asleep. So those are some relaxation techniques. And last but not least, I wanted to pull up some external resources for sleep because you may need more than what I've given here because this is a short talk. And these are all ones that have been recommended by patients to me. There is the Sleep Coach School, which was developed by Daniel Erickson. He had insomnia himself, and he was able to work on it by the fear that was associated with sleep. So he worked on his fear. He has a YouTube channel. He has an app. So he has tons of resources. The Sleep Reset program was created by behavioral and sleep specialists, psychology experts from Stanford. It uses an app, plus it does have coaches. It's an 8-week program. And it's really interesting because it has you do an assessment before you start with them to kind of know what it is that your needs are that to help you with. The Sleep Science Academy was created by Devin Burke, who is a well-renowned sleep expert. And he created this 8-week, it's purely coaching program. And it really goes into the science behind insomnia, fear with sleep, and it's just a really good overall program. A lot of patients really like that one. And then last but not least is the Mayo Clinic has a CBT course. Now that stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. The I stands for insomnia. This is a free, self-paced 2 to 6 week program using cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to help with insomnia. Now here, it's a very long link. So what I'll do is I'll put it in the actual link to it in the chat. So that way, if anyone's interested in checking it out, it's a really good resource there. So that was my entire presentation on sleep. I hope that some of it was helpful. I will figure out how to stop sharing my screen. There we go. All right.
Dr. Suzanne, were you a university professor in a past chapter of your life? Because you've got the skills and we were all fully attentive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's give our virtual round of applause and show some love. In addition to this topic, do you have any just general messages that you want to share here to folks who are here to get their health in check and improve their tinnitus?
So one thing that I always tell patients having tinnitus and really disruptive, intrusive tinnitus myself is that as hard as it is right now, and I know it's hard, is that there is hope. There is things that you can do to improve your tinnitus. You can get to the other side. And one of my favorite quotes is that, the most biggest transformations come from the hundreds of tiny imperceptible steps we take along the way. And so that is the journey of tinnitus is you take all these tiny steps and at the end you're able to look back and go, wow, I did that. So you guys can do it. I know you can.
Thank you so much. Let's give a big virtual round of applause and show our love to Dr. Suzanne. I really appreciate your time and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we are moving along here at the Tinnitus 180 launch event. For those who don't know, the Tinnitus 180 program is brand new today, is launching right now as a part of this event. And the aim here, the goal is to reduce tinnitus and turn your life around 180 degrees. I wanted to show some details about the results that we found with our data. So out of 130 people, what we found is that 85% of patients using the Tinnitus 180 program reported reduced tinnitus. And for those who had gone through our program here, the core components being, number one, the root cause detection, number two, the smart sound devices that go on the ears, and then number three, the brain retraining sessions with the audiologist, with our audiologist. All right, so this is a telehealth program, and the data here supports that it works very, very well. 81% of individuals had improvements related to emotional distress. So things like anxiety, can't control thoughts, automatic negative thinking, intense feelings, and you just can't get tinnitus out of our day-to-day experience. We have a vast majority of patients improving that. For those who had sleep, which was just the discussion in our recent talk with Dr. Suzanne, 77% reported improved sleep here. And for concentration and focus, the number was 78% rate of improvement. And this is measured at 6 months after beginning working with us. So this shows us a few things, is that we need to treat tinnitus like a marathon, because that's what gets us the best results. And simply, that's an important piece to manage your expectations. These are the 3 core pillars. This is what you get with the Tinnitus 180 program. And something here that's quite unique and really shows the confidence behind our data and our team is that we guarantee results within 180 days or your money back. That means we're measuring tinnitus at intervals. We're making sure you get improvements in key areas like the emotional distress, like sleep, like concentration and focus, and overall get your life back in order. Here's a sample of our team. And then finally, this is a link on the screen of where you can claim one of the spots, as we accept 10 new clients per week. So if you're interested in getting help with Treble Health, I would recommend that you go to our website, treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. And this is where you can sign up. How it works is we essentially have a deposit where you confirm your spot, and then you'll speak with a specialist, an audiologist on our team, and we'll confirm all the details with you, make sure it's a good fit, and then get you signed up, and then on your way towards relief, followed by treatment. It's important here to note that in the first weeks, we aim for relief, but really the goal here is to graduate, right? And that can happen at different time intervals. But I want to show here James Z, who found relief in about 7 days working with Treble Health, and who graduated, who essentially moved to self-manage this condition without our help in less than 2 months. So James says that Treble Health is without a doubt the great. This isn't quite an amazing review, and I just want to preface this by saying, this really did a 180 for James. James said, Treble Health is without a doubt the greatest healthcare experience I've ever had. Within 60 seconds of my consultation, it was obvious that they are in it for their patients. This is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. If you suffer from tinnitus, I promise it will be one of the best decisions you'll ever make. So guys, we're going to include this in the chat. Go over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180 for you to get started. And next up here at the Tinnitus 180 launch event, we have none other than Suzanne, who is here to share her own experience overcoming tinnitus. So Suzanne, thank you so much for being here. I believe you should be able to turn on your video right now. Amazing. Suzanne, how are you?
I'm good.
I can hear you loud and clear, so thank you for being here. Can we first start with just a quick introduction to who you are? What do you do in your professional life? Just give us some context of who you are as a person before we start to talk about ears.
I am Susan Frank, and I work in many variety of modalities. I do marketing, I do film, I do video, I do screenwriting. So I'll just say I'm a creative. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. And tell us about where you are right now with your ears and your hearing, and then go back to when things were at their most intense. Just give us that contrast between where you are now versus where things were for you.
I am in a place where I have a very high quality of life. And that meaning around my tinnitus specifically, it doesn't impact my ability to function, to work, to be active, to socialize as much as it did. It's still, part of my life. I really am at a place where I recognize that it just is part of who I am. But I'm living my best life, and I'm very satisfied, with where I'm at. And I do hope that I will, continue to improve and improve and improve. And that has been the case. I'm very slow, but I don't care, because I'm super happy about where I am at right now.
Hey, if slow is progress, then slow is good, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So give us some context of what are your symptoms? What do you hear? What kind of tinnitus do you have? One ear, both ears? Tell us about that.
I have tinnitus in both ears. I hear about 4 or 5 different sounds, always changing day to day. And it's unpredictable. So I can have what I call somewhat quiet days, although I don't have quiet days like I used to, like every once in a while I'd have a day I didn't have it at all, but that doesn't really happen anymore. But I have like a low sort of bubbly sound. I have a low sort of hissing sound, and all of the sounds except for one is, really manageable. And the one is getting better. It comes like 3 to 4 times a month. It's unpredictable, but even those days, I know it's going to pass, and it always does. So it's those tools, of how to manage it from a mindset and, just a therapeutic perspective.
Absolutely. So why are you here? You're volunteering your time here. I just want to set the scene here. What's important for you to be here? There's over 100 people who are hoping to get some relief or some tips. So why are you here?
Well, I'm here because I really want to pass on, hope to those who are really suffering. And I was one of those people. And that was a couple of years ago when I started started my tinnitus journey about 2.5 years ago. And I really want to share the things that made a difference for me, because when I first got tinnitus, I felt very alone. I was very confused. I didn't understand so many things that I understand now. And I think that I want to get people as fast as possible on the path that took me a little while to get to. So I really want to share my successes so that others who were where I was at can have hope. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So what did early stages of tinnitus Susan not quite know that she would have really benefited from knowing?
Oh my gosh. So many things. That there were ways that I could get help, that I would be able to live with tinnitus. And I think that's key, because when I first got it, all I could say out loud was, this is going to go away. I know it's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And I got so stuck in that place that I couldn't imagine a life with it. And so what I have now is a very good life living with tinnitus. And I think that's the first hurdle, is to really come to terms with, how can I live my life with tinnitus and really get back so much of what I've lost and gain new insights about who I am. So yeah, I mean, just that I could live with tinnitus, and then begin the journey of, what does that look like? And how can I begin to manage these symptoms, these chronic symptoms? Yeah.
Where did you feel like you learned originally that there might not be something you can do, or that you were stuck with this? Did certain people or information kind of reinforce that false belief?
Yeah, I mean, I did some Google searches. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the hospital where my husband was being cared for the first night that I got it, and he was in the hospital, and I got tinnitus, I believe, because of the stress of that situation. And I was sitting in the car with the air conditioning on, and I was Googling tinnitus, and there just was so much banter and so much fear and so much loud, banging about this condition. I didn't know what to believe. And I remember one video in particular, I won't share about it, but it was really damaging for me. I really got terrified, and it really deepened my early days to become much worse than probably they could have been if I had discovered authentic treatment earlier.
Absolutely. So let's jump into those first tools that you used that did work. and the emotional feeling of what that brought, because what I see in a lot of our community, and I want to see in the chat if other people can resonate with this, is that those first early small wins are the most important. Even if they don't change tinnitus per se, they get the momentum going. They start to, create this powerful force of continued progress and slow baby steps, which eventually lead towards where you are and where you are at right now. What were those moments, or what were those tools that you tried that did give some relief or some real progress?
Well, I think the real progress honestly started when I connected with you all, in addition to one, a couple other concepts that were aligned with what I began to learn with Treble. But Treble, when I found my way to you guys, that was the beginning. And there were a couple of very specific, you're talking about those little baby steps. And, I have very specific moments that are still clear as can be. Of one was a tool where you kind of stand outside of yourself, and it's a cognitive behavioral therapy tool. I can't remember what the name of it is. And I remember just all of a sudden sort of imagine myself, that I was looking back at myself and really trying to put the tinnitus into some sort of perspective. And it was like an awakening. It was a moment. And it was really early on. And I think it was the adding of those little dots. I'll just share one other really important. I see Suzanne's face there. She was my therapist. That smile. She's the one who kept me going for so long. But she shared a diagram with me that I'll never forget, where it's like this circle from above. I know you probably have all seen it, but it's the circle that you look at, and like the dots are going, you feel like you're going in circles, right? And then when you turn it on into a different perspective, you see that it's like a spring, right? And the little dots are going up the spring. And I used to imagine myself like one of those little dots, because again, my journey is not 54. It was not 54 days. I started like that. I could even possibly think of not having my weekly therapy, but it's different for everyone. I mean, it doesn't mean that, large percentages can't be ready to graduate in 54 days. It just wasn't my journey. So yeah, just little moments, like little aha moments. And now I can look back, and even now when I really do believe, now that I have 2.5 years, I can actually see those incremental steps, and that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. That's why I keep having these, I'll take a breath, or I'll take some time, or I'll take a walk, or, because I know that they're adding up.
I once met a very smart neuroscientist type, and I asked him a question, and I said, what advice do you have for someone about the mind or about the brain? And he said, every decision matters. How even small decisions are registered, even if it might not feel like it. Choosing to do the right thing, choosing to practice self-care, even if in a small way, it matters, and it makes an impact. What does that mean to you? What comes up when you hear that?
Every single day. Well, because my tinnitus is now in a cycle where I still have tinnitus, audible tinnitus, really at night. So I know people struggle with sleep. And then that's in the morning is when my tinnitus has its surprise, whatever it's going to be. It's going to go, hello, good morning. And it's going to kind of sit there all day, and then it'll change the next day. And luckily, most of the time, it's something that's very manageable. But every morning when I wake up, I have my sound therapy going in my room. And I never know quite exactly what it is or where it's going to go. And so I just tell myself this, and every morning, like religiously, I just tell myself, whatever comes to me today, whatever you're going to look like, I can handle this. I I just know that I can. And I do, and I know that that positive, I know it sounds so silly, but it's like that little positive thing I totally know is adding up. I know it. I believe it. And I believe it. I can't, it's not, it doesn't feel scientific. It doesn't seem scientific. And I'm a super, like, really down to earth person, but I just know that those incremental positive moments every morning are building towards, like a year from now. I can't wait because like I just know I'm going to be even better than I am now. So I hope.
Susan, Susan, let's get into how you use sound therapy. So, what was your relationship with sound therapy? What kind of technology did you use, and what sounds did you end up finding the most beneficial?
Well, sound therapy just in general was a great tool for me. I know it's not for everyone, but it was and continues to be. So initially I did get the little hearing aids, and I did use them for a little while. And again, everybody's experience is going to be so unique. I remember Suzanne, I think she still has hers like sort of stashed aside, somewhere. Whereas it turns out over time, I ended up using those sort of bone phone, where it was the sound, but it was on my cheekbones. And so it was a little removed from my ears, which for me was, felt better over time. And what's interesting is that has continued, that sound therapy has continued to move further and further away. So even right now, because I was kind of nervous about today, like on my phone, I have the sound of rain right now, and that just helps me calm down. And so that ended up being, that's really the sound that is my go-to now. I had a couple others that were really weird. One was the sound of a bicycle chain. That was a really good one for me. And it was the clicking, that clean clicking just helped, like, broke up the piercing sound that I had. So it was quite contrasting. But now this rain noise is just kind of, I don't know, it's just like right in the pocket. It helps me calm down. So my tinnitus is really connected to anxiety. So, they're kind of one and the same. But anyway,
definitely run along the same brain networks where anxiety also impacts the fight or flight response. It's also regulated by the nervous system. It also makes it harder to sleep. It also has an effect on our mind, our body, our stress. So in that ways, yes. Now, for some people, they have a pre-existing anxiety and then tinnitus comes and then their anxiety gets worse. Whereas others would say, no, life was pretty good for me, not real anxiety, then tinnitus, then anxiety. So we can understand the nuances there, but learning the physiology, learning the tools, learning how the body, ear, and brain connect is key. What are your main takeaways? You had many one-on-one sessions with an expert tinnitus audiologist. So for those who haven't had that, perhaps you could share what your takeaways are for the connection between the ear, the brain, and the central nervous system.
Well, I think what my takeaway, well, one, it was great to learn the science. That was very grounding for me. And I did have Suzanne, like repeat herself a million times, because it actually calmed me down to just keep hearing what this story, the tinnitus story, from a scientific perspective. And honestly, I can't even tell you, like, if I was put on, took a test right now, I probably wouldn't answer it correctly. But it just, the kind of the sound of her voice telling me about the science in itself was just very calming. So, I do think my takeaway from a scientific perspective was just that it's in my brain. It's something that's in my brain. And if it's in my brain, there are things that I can do. Like, it's not like I have a magic wand. Like, let's say it was due to, hearing or something like that. That's a difficult thing to try to, fix your ear, but you can work on the pathways in your brain. And that, I think, like I was saying with the dots, like, the malleability of our brain and being able to teach it, that is definitely a takeaway. And again, a very empowering takeaway. But, outside of that piece of it, I mean, just the camaraderie I had with Suzanne and the ability to not just speak with her every week, but to be able to text her, which I did do. I don't know if that's still part of the service, but like when I would get really, really upset, I could text her and just, she would text me back. And it was just very comforting, and it was necessary for me to get better. I mean, it's what worked,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, we're going to open it up to questions here. Questions for Susan, questions for me. So if you're here live on Zoom, please comment in the chat or in the Q&A section. And if you're on YouTube, I'm also monitoring the YouTube live stream comments. So Susan, first question for you is, how did tinnitus affect your sleep? And did you ever have to use any medications related to tinnitus?
Okay, so yes and yes. And, I don't know that it's appropriate to speak about psychiatric medication, but I have, like I said, I have an anxiety disorder as in addition to the tinnitus, and they're kind of very interrelated for me. And so I feel very, very positive about my journey with medication. I took it and take it extremely conservatively, and it is what it did help me with my sleep primarily. So I never went towards like any kind of sleep aid that I went more towards the psychiatric medications that can help with sleep. And that was, because I'm very, 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 again, the anxiety shows its head, but I actually am very uncomfortable with medication. And so I did. And what's really cool is that even a few weeks ago, I'm very, very slowly removing the medications. And for me, that's important, not for everybody, but it just feels good that I'm getting even part of that back. But the sleep, yes, the medication helped. Sound therapy, I would say equal, and is still, I will probably have sound therapy for the rest of my life. I don't care. I slept with a fan my entire life anyway. And so adding just the sound of water to the sound of a fan is what it's, yeah, I mean, and I do sleep well every single night. So,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. We have a question here coming from Jason. Jason asks, what exactly was it with the bike chain sound, and how do you recommend experimenting with new sounds? Because that's not a common sound therapy, Susan. I hate to break it to you, but you must have been trying hundreds of sounds to land on bike chains. So what's your recommendation for those who want to experiment with different types of sounds?
Well, I know that there are a lot of different apps. I think, not trying to, but I know that Treble, you guys have been working on an app with different sound therapies. And I happened to find an app that had just like a lot to choose from. And they described the different purposes for the different sounds. And I happen to also be a cyclist. I don't know that those two things are related. So just saying. But in my conversations with Suzanne, she shared with me some of the sounds that she has used over the years. And that opened my mind to the idea that I might not fit into, say, 80% of people use white noise, whatever. I did not fit into that. That I knew from the beginning was not the right frequency for me. So I did do a lot of experimentation, and I did find the sound of a bicycle chain going, and it was very, very calming. And I think I was trying to say before, for me, it broke up the sound of the tinnitus in a way that just, I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of know it if you get it. If it happens, you'll know it. So don't be afraid to try things that seem weird. I mean, Suzanne was listening to whales one day,
That's correct. And we have a popular sound called crackle, which
okay, that's probably similar. Yeah,
it's a similar. I would call it in the category of breaks up a very high pitched constant whine
Yes.
in a way that normal everyday sounds don't. So that crackle one is it's a white noise mixed with a static, and that like very high pitched crackling of a static, similar to the
Yes.
crackling of a fire, can
Crackling
also
of the fire. I like
break it
that
up.
one too. But yeah, and you've hit it. It does help to break up the constant. And that is the sound that is still my most challenging, is that once a week or once a week and a half, I get the high pitched sound. And but even, what's weird is with that now, I don't use any sound therapy. It just, things change. And I don't use the bike anymore. I don't use anything but the rain, and the rain is just on kind of a good day. I don't know why, but the rain is just, it keeps my good day good. I'll just, yeah.
Jason asks, what apps have you used? You can name the name of the app, even if it's not one of ours, of course. What apps did you use that you found helpful, whether that was for anxiety or for tinnitus?
Odo was where I found the bicycle chain. And then I'm going to just tell you what it is. I have it on right here. And actually, I think Suzanne had suggested this one. Let me go to it's called White Noise. And it has a little sound thing, and then here's the rain. So, and the White Noise app has so many options, and you can make it louder and less loud. You can combine them. It's kind of fun. I mean, it has a lot of different options. So those are the two that I used. And I was using those pretty early on, way before you guys came out with your sounds. I was already hooked by the time Treble got their sounds out there. But you're going to find there's a lot of different apps for that. And the White Noise is free, and it goes 24/7 if you wanted it. Yeah.
We have another question from Egan. Egan's asking about being in loud noise environments. So what was your relationship with going to a concert, a loud restaurant, being around loud noises, and how has that adapted over time?
Wow, that's just such a great question, because I couldn't be social at all. Yeah, that makes me kind of emotional, to be honest with you, but I do engage in social things quite often now. And some of those social things are in loud environments. And I have the tool of, I put in earplugs. So I have really good quality earplugs, and I have gone to some concerts, and I have been just fine. Yeah. And I've really enjoyed myself, even when I've had tinnitus at a higher level. I've been able to pretty much stay. Sometimes I have to leave early. Sometimes I did have to leave a dinner once when a band started playing that we weren't anticipating, and I didn't have my earplugs, and I just couldn't do it. So it has been a very slow process. I did veer away from social gatherings for at least a year and a half. I communicated to all my friends, which was hard, and to my family. Very, very, very hard. Lots of growth, lots of boundaries. Yeah, it makes me feel kind of emotional. It was tough, very, very hard, very difficult. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, slowly but surely incorporating it back, using earplugs, knowing that we're safe, knowing the earplugs will help keep us at a safe listening level, and then gradually having experiences to prove that. Okay, it's one thing to hope that it's fine, but it's another thing to go once, twice, 3 times when it was fine. And sometimes it's not smooth sailing. We've had clients who are incorporating loud sounds again, and they have an increase in tinnitus for 3 days, and it's nerve-wracking, but it settles down, and then we adjust. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, that's the brain thing again. If you go and you have a successful experience, we would always talk about my little bubble, and I was in a really small bubble for a really long time. And then I'd sort of poke at the bubble and we'd try things. And I say we, because Suzanne was like on that journey with me all the time. She like, why don't you give that one a go, and I would, and sometimes it didn't go very well. So, we step back a little and then I try again. Yeah. And, and I think that's the brain thing. Like when you have it, you got to keep trying, and like when you have the success, then that's when the brain goes, okay, like it get, it's like, okay, maybe I could do this again. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Susan, as we're wrapping up here in the next few minutes, we have a few last questions coming in, but just wanted to give you the opportunity to share your core message. Again, going back to the why of why are you here, going back to that former self, the earlier Susan who needed this. Let's be honest. She needed to hear this. So what did the earlier Susan need to hear that now you have the experience to back it up?
Before I do that, can I say one quick thing?
Please, absolutely.
I saw a little question come up from a fellow cyclist, and I just wanted to say, like, I did have trouble. Like, I've been an exercise fiend my whole life, and I had to tamp down my exercising because it did aggravate my tinnitus, and I've learned how to get back to exercising. And so I don't know what that question was, but I just want to say, like,
let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. How'd you get back into exercising and what did you notice with your ears?
Well, just slowly, again, kind of like getting social again. I had a plan I ride with my friends and I had a plan. And if I couldn't do it, I would just tell them, I text them, I wouldn't go. And then each time, and then I would go again and again. And then once I would ride with a challenging flare and I got back and I went to sleep and I woke up and I was okay. So then that taught me that I can even ride with a flare, like I can do that. And so it's just been so insanely important for me. And I'm sure everybody could go, oh, well, this was important to me and I can't do it anymore. Or this was important. So I guess that kind of answers your question. I mean, in a way, is that I really didn't know if I'd ever get to be like gung-ho, hardcore, back into my athletics. I do other things besides cycling. And I will add, I should say this, I did leave my job as well for almost 2 years. So I'm working again. So yeah, I don't know if I really answered your question, but I just saw that little note and I just know if you're, like, I just wanted to reach out because I know, like, if you truly are passionate about something and it's like part of your identity, and it's not being able to do that. Yeah.
It can really influence this negative spiral of anxiety, insomnia, stress when suddenly our biggest joy, which lifts us up out of those states we feel like we can't do anymore because of tinnitus.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Susan, thank you so much. Let's give you a big round of applause and show some hearts and some love.
I'm seeing hearts over like Suzanne. It's so funny.
Totally, a sea of hearts coming straight for you. Who knew Zoom could be so much fun? Thank you so much. Please do keep in touch, and if you want to hang out for a few minutes in the chat, you're welcome to answer any remaining questions that come in.
Okay.
Really appreciate your time and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Guys, we are right on schedule, so I just want to check in with everyone. Let's just do a little regroup. So, if you need a drink of water, let's take a drink of water. If you need to stand up to reset yourself, take some deep breaths, move around. If you're half listening and paying half attention to this while watching TV, just choose one, and hopefully it's this one. I'm going to bring us home here with our last presentation of the Tinnitus 180 launch event. So let me pull up some visual slides to go with. And then if you have questions along the way, I see some great questions coming in. Egan's question was excellent. We have more questions here about earplugs, about tinnitus, about diet, about what different treatment options are available. So I want to share the core treatment that everyone you saw here today used. And that's working with Treble Health. What we've done is we've compiled our best approach into a program called Tinnitus 180. And the idea is that with the right system in place, you can turn your health around and get your tinnitus in order. I want to highlight two individuals here that went through our program. One is Lewis N. And Lewis experienced relief within a week, and he graduated from the program in 116 days. So, essentially that's 3.5 months. And some of you might think, man, I've had tinnitus for 2 years, 3.5 months, that's fast. Where others of you may think, I have had tinnitus for a few months. I don't know if I can do another, 3.5 months of this. I need it gone now. The truth is somewhere in the middle, which is that most often, if tinnitus was going to increase dramatically on its own, it would do so within the first weeks. That's generally what the data supports, and it's what I see, amongst people who have tinnitus. The amount of time it takes to get relief doesn't have to be long. And most often I see sound therapy tools providing the most immediate relief for patients. Also, right behind that, I see guided breathing, meditation, mindfulness, these kinds of stress reduction tools. And then right behind that, I see sleep and changes to the sleep pattern, whether that's through sound therapy or just adjustments to the sleep system, how that can all lead to relief and some quick wins, some low-hanging fruit, if you will. We say graduated on the screen because when someone works with us in our program, we work with them hands-on, meeting at regular intervals until they can self-manage this condition, and it's much better. So essentially, for Lewis, that means starting with tinnitus at a moderately severe intensity, very intense level of tinnitus, and then bringing it down right into that mild range of tinnitus, remembering that millions of people, including myself, are living with mild tinnitus. So our goal is to get our patients down to that mild level of tinnitus. That is a success here. And then the tinnitus isn't a major issue in their life. They can very easily live with a mild degree, a 1, a 2, a 3 out of 10 degree of tinnitus. So I just wanted to set the scene here. And Lewis said, as a recent graduate who's achieved stage 4 habituation, I cannot thank Treble Health and Dr. Ramsey enough for getting me to the finish line. It's impactful. So Lewis did a 180 on this and is feeling a lot better. And shout out to Dr. Ramsey, who's been here in the chat answering some questions, as well as on YouTube live on our live stream. So thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Next up, this is a gentleman named Steve at our New York City live event that we did back in April of this year. I got to meet Steve in person after knowing him online for quite a bit. Steve's story is that he's a pharmacist, very well educated about health, about medical studies. He saw multiple doctors. He realized that this wasn't going to be a pharmaceutical or a herbal supplement solution for his tinnitus, but he was desperate. He would try anything. So fortunately, he got connected to our team at Treble Health, and in 28 days, he found relief. So what does this show us? This shows us that you can have an excellent system in place. You can have things working just the way that the experts want them to be working, but relief might not happen immediately. That's still okay because he's doing the right things. And I know that the research support that the example sound therapy can take up to 90 days for the auditory brain to manifest. So what this means here is that we don't want to judge an approach too quickly, especially the tinnitus treatment program laid out here in Tinnitus 180, especially what we do at Treble Health. We need time for this to manifest because ultimately that gets the best results. And some of you might be thinking, well, is this just waiting? And is this just waiting for tinnitus to get better on its own? There's some degree of natural habituation, but it's usually not even close to what we see with a targeted treatment plan. This is what we call inducing habituation, and that allows the brain to reduce the awareness, the perception, and often the volume of tinnitus over time. So Steve had relief in 28 days, and he graduated just over 3 months in 106 days. Steve says, Treble Health helped me reduce my tinnitus by about 80%. And now I can live my life again. It was wonderful to meet him, shake his hand in person at our event in New York City, and just see him, really excited to share his story and help others who were in a similar place as he was. So guys, these are just two of the stories of patients that I wanted to share with you. You also got to hear from Susan earlier, from Lisa, and then kicking off our launch event here from Steve. You also got to hear Dr. Tracy and Dr. Suzanne give amazing presentations. If you missed any of those are all recorded on YouTube. You can find them later. And if you're registered for our event here, we'll send it to you in a follow-up email address. But let's jump into what exactly you get with the Tinnitus 180 program. Just touching on this quickly. First, you get root cause detection. Tinnitus is a symptom. I'll say that again. Tinnitus is a symptom. It's not a disease or a disorder in and of itself, but it's linked to an underlying cause. And when you're paired with an expert who can holistically look at all of your test results, ask questions that give us a case history to pinpoint what is the root cause or multiple root causes at play, then we can cater the plan and the program accordingly, leading to the best results. And this logically makes sense that you don't want to simply treat for example, you wouldn't want to treat a lung infection with something that's an inhaler. You wouldn't want to treat something that's deep beneath your skin with a Band-Aid, because the source isn't going to be treated. We're simply, numbing the symptoms and hope it gets better on its own. But for a lot of us with tinnitus, it frankly doesn't get that much better on its own. And if it does, that's amazing. We celebrate that. That's great. But often it doesn't. So we want a plan in place. So that's piece number one, the root cause detection, where we provide an independent assessment and get down to the underlying factors that are contributing to why you have this in the first place, and provide a plan to help you out through the program to address that. The second core pillar here are the smart sound devices. These are devices that go right on your ears, and they're programmed with sound therapy that's effectively reducing the brain's perception of tinnitus. What we saw earlier is that some of these stories with relief in 6 days, relief in 28 days, often this comes from the smart sound devices, that sound therapy inside of the ears, mixing in with the auditory brain. So in the Tinnitus 180 program, that's delivered and programmed via telehealth. The third core pillar here is the brain retraining program. So I could tell you what your root cause is, and I could give you sound therapy devices. But if you are trying to do this on your own, the results are limited, and I wouldn't expect them to move the needle too much for you. When your whole program is being directed by a doctor of audiology who specializes in tinnitus, this is what the research agrees with leads to the best outcomes. You can have the best device, but if it's not programmed according to the science and the research of what you need based on your root cause, the results are somewhat limited compared to an audiologist on our team who's programming the whole system and providing the one-on-one counseling, the coaching, the strategies, improving sleep, improving emotional distress, improving concentration and focus, and telling you what to do and what not to do. That really expedites your progress and compounds over time. Part of this launch, which we've never had before, and is a sign of the confidence in our data and our program and our audiologists on our team, is that we guarantee results or your money back. So basically what that means for you is that you will reduce your tinnitus within 180 days or receive a full refund. There's certain conditions that we need from you, however. We need you to show up to 8 appointments with our audiologist over telehealth. We need you to use sound therapy according to our instructions. And we need you to complete the tinnitus questionnaire that gives your tinnitus a number from 0 to 100 so that we can measure your tinnitus at the 3-month mark, and then again at the 6-month mark where by 180 days, we guarantee that result or you get your money back. So, we as a team are the ones who are responsible for helping you get this done, but you have to really show up and do some work as well. And we believe that is what leads to our results, leading our industry here. Here's an example of some of our team members who you got to meet today, which we're really excited about. And then another snapshot of our data. Again, this is of 130 people. And what the data showed here is that 85% of patients reported reduced tinnitus. This is using the core pillars here, which we're now calling the Tinnitus 180 program by Treble Health. A lot of individuals are going through difficulty managing anxiety related to tinnitus, stress related to tinnitus. And our data showed that 81% of patients reported improved emotional distress. For those who are having a hard time focusing at work, being in quiet places, struggling to be productive, our data supports that 78% of patients improve their concentration and focus. And then finally, an important one that affects a lot of us is sleep. Getting to sleep, staying to sleep. How am I going to fall asleep when my room is so quiet and the tinnitus is so much louder when it's quiet? So having a plan in place and following a program is key. Our data supports that 77%, over 3/4 of patients reported improvements with sleep. Treble Health being trusted with over 900 5-star reviews just shows that we've been doing this for a number of years here, dedicated to tinnitus and making a big impact in the tinnitus community. If you are interested in getting started with our new program here, we are accepting only 10 new clients per week, and those spots are going to fill up pretty quickly here. So whether that's tonight or soon after, I would recommend that you head over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180, and we'll drop that link in the chat for you guys as well, for you to investigate. So I'm going to be here and I'm going to set a timer for the next 19 minutes here until the top of the hour, answering questions and getting us on the right track with what you guys need. So you've learned about Tinnitus 180. Hopefully you believe that it is valuable and that it might be able to help you if you're in need of that service or in need of help with tinnitus. And now we can answer questions, whether that's about the program or about your specific case. So with that in mind, let's open up the chat to questions. And I couldn't be more excited to be here to help you guys. There's over 130 of us here between the live Zoom and the YouTube live stream. So let's get it going. The first question here I have is about different sound therapies. So this individual says that I tried some hearing aids. This individual says, I tried some hearing aids from a company. I had a 1-week demo, and I felt like the sound therapy approach wasn't really right for me. I'm not sure if it was set at the right frequency or if the sound therapy was too high. Are there special ways to program hearing aids? What should I expect? So great question. And here's the answer. When you have hearing aids that are, I have some hearing aids right here, so I'll show you guys these. When you have hearing aids, and I'll make this full screen here so you can see. Or sorry, right there. So when you have hearing aids, this is an example of some hearing aids. The hardware or the device, how it looks, doesn't change all too much. But how it's programmed is very different. Think about your phone. The hardware looks the same, but the software, the apps, the settings, the contacts, all that are the same. It creates a very different experience when you open it and use it. With the hearing device, the actual sound output, therefore the effectiveness of the entire program, depends on how it's adjusted. And a lot of professionals don't specialize in tinnitus. So if you go in and say, I have tinnitus and I want some help, they give you a hearing test and you say, well, actually you have some high-pitched hearing loss. And you say, yeah, actually I'm struggling with tinnitus. They say, well, you could try hearing aids. And they're programming the hearing aids, not specializing in tinnitus. in my experience, that doesn't lead to the best tinnitus outcome. So hopefully that answers your question and gets you on the right track. I do believe that based on how your question was asked, that there's serious opportunity for you to use sound therapy devices and or hearing aids that are programmed by specialists like our team at Treble Health, where we can customize them for you and get you on the right track. So thank you so much for asking. All right, guys, I'm here for 15 minutes. So if you are with us live, definitely make sure to check the chat, where I'm going to ask my team to put the full link there of the treblehealth.com/tinnitus180 program, where you can review and hopefully be one of our new clients this week, as we're only accepting up to 10, and these spots are expected to fill up quite quickly. The reason there is we have specialists on our team, and we're only able to take on so many new clients per week. We are here to help. So with this Tinnitus 180 guarantee, I really hope that you consider what we're offering here and get some help for you if you need it. We're here for you. Jason, I really appreciate your comment. Thanks so much. It's great to see you here. Maggie asks, how much time per day should one dedicate to the therapies? Maggie, it's a great question. So there's two pieces of it. One is the active time that you have to be doing things. And the second is the passive time where you might have something set up. So let's start with the active time. In terms of active exercises or therapies, it averages out to about 30 to 45 minutes per week of, say, active showing up. So that either could be appointments or setting up certain things on your own. However, there's most of your waking hours that you have a passive experience going on. So what that means is that sound therapy devices that go in your ears, I want to show you guys some of them. I know my screen's really small right now, but basically I have this sound therapy device, which is part of the Tinnitus 180 program, and I'm going to put it in my ear just like that. So essentially, once you have this programmed by your audiologist over telehealth, then we set it up on your ear, and all you have to do is wear them during the day, and then you're getting that passive sound therapy. Okay, so yes, you're using it for majority of waking hours, but anytime you have it in your ears, you're getting the sound therapy in. All right, so what that means is there's a lot less active time investment than you might think. And then you would show up for your appointments with your audiologist that happen usually every 2 weeks. And then you'd have some homework assignments in between, which would be working on more of the cognitive and behavior strategies that can also expedite your progress here. So thank you, Maggie. AW asks, how often or how much time do you need to talk with one of your team, say in a week? Like I just mentioned, in the first month, you're going to meet with your audiologist about 3 times. There's a lot of explanation of how the devices work, getting things set up, getting things programmed right. But once you have all of that technology piece set up and you're familiar with how to use everything, then you're usually meeting every 2 weeks. And like I said, we're giving you instructions in between the sessions. Deborah asks, do we offer a payment plan with the Tinnitus 180 program? Deborah, we do. So how this works is if you want to sign up or get started, you would click the link in the chat or head to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. Then you would sign up with a $300 deposit. That would secure your spot so that we can accept you as a new client in this week's allotment. But then you would speak to an audiologist on our team where we would make sure this is the right program for you. Because ultimately, we want you to succeed here. We want to understand your case. We want to make sure that we're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us. And then that is a refundable $300 deposit. So that would be the next step. From there, there is a payment plan option where probably the best payment plan we have available is $308 per month, 12 months, 0% interest. So about $300 per month over 12 months at 0% interest. So there's an option to pay in full via credit card or HSA, FSA account, or if you'd like, there is an option to do this payment plan. Holly, you asked about insurance. How does insurance work with this program? Generally speaking, tinnitus care is not covered by insurance. There are cases where some out-of-network benefits can be submitted for reimbursement. So if you're interested in this, I'd like for you to go to the webpage that's listed on the screen here or in the chat. There's an option to schedule a consultation. So in that consultation, you can speak with one of our experts and we can discuss your specific case, your specific insurance, and give you some next steps regarding what's needed. But something we deal with all the time, and we'd be sure to help you out if you wanted to work with us with an out-of-network insurance benefit. We'll do our best to help you. All right, so we have a question here that from A. A asks, is the sound therapy on your YouTube channel just as good? I really don't want to wear the devices on my ears that are part of the program. I've been using wired Apple headphones that are loose out of my ears so I can hear ambient. So to answer your question here, it's, from a purely theoretical place, good sound that's coming into your ears, it doesn't matter if it's on your ear or coming from a good speaker. But practically speaking and leading you to success with the treatment program, you need to use sound therapy for a vast majority of your waking hours during the treatment. So it's best not to block the ear canals with something like a headphone or an AirPod or things that go in your ears, right? Because you're not hearing ambient sound. Even like you said, I know you're aware of this, but generally speaking, that's the advice. So it's sustainable. It's a better setup. It's better outcome if you use these devices like the sound therapy devices. So I appreciate your question, but no, using sound therapy from the YouTube channel is not as effective, all things equal, as having devices on your ears that you would use during this program. Mike asks a good question. Mike asks that, hey guys, I use heavy equipment, so I wear earplugs a lot of hours of the day. What would I do in my case? So if someone's around a lot of noise, then no, you don't need to use sound therapy when you're around a lot of noise. Similarly, if you were, say, camping next to a river for the weekend and there was natural sound, you wouldn't need to have sound therapy on your ears, because most of us are in quieter environments for a vast majority of time. So therefore, it would be a smart idea to have these discrete devices that no one else can hear, that are set at the right volume and frequency, so that you just live your normal life walking around and the sound quality and volume remains constant. That's really important. But if you do work around loud environments, then I would recommend having a consultation with a member of our team, Mike, where we can really review, the specifics around this, because if you're struggling with tinnitus, often you need help. I don't want you to think that just because you are around a lot of loud noise that there's no help for you. Perhaps we try something that uses the sound devices, but in a more limited manner. Evenings and weekends, for example. Another option might be to modify the program based on your needs without the devices. So I would recommend talking to an expert from our team, and we can help you out with some options. You can do so by going to the treblehealth.com/tinnitus180 and then scheduling the appointment through the book a discovery call link. Thank you. All right, guys, I got about 5 more minutes, and we do have some interest here and some new clients coming in for our brand new Tinnitus 180 program. If I haven't said it already, I'm really proud of this. It's a culmination of over 4 years of dedication to the tinnitus community. So for those of you guys who have shared some love tonight and are here to support us and be a part of this community, I really thank you. And it's nice to see the hearts flowing on the screen on Zoom. All right, so 27 asks, Dr. Ben, I've had tinnitus for 3 months now. I'm planning a weekend trip. I'm a little nervous, uncomfortable. Any advice? yeah, my advice would be to focus on the basic tenets of health: sleep well, good nutrition, stay hydrated. Don't let your mind make this, don't let your mind show you that this is going to be, impossible, or that something's going to go wrong. Just try not to buy into that story that comes up. Have sound therapy available. Tell the people you're traveling with that you're going through a health thing. Get some rest, maybe take a nap, and I think your weekend trip will be just fine. Just know that at some point you will have to get out of your comfort zone, and maybe this is that moment for you. All right, I'm going to try to catch up with questions here. For those who haven't already, I would recommend that you head over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180, where we presented all the information in an easy way to review everything. And like I said, next steps would be to confirm a $300 deposit, and that would secure your spot as a new client for this week. We would speak to you likely the next day where we have availability. We can review your case, make sure this is a great choice for you, and then get you signed up. If you do sign up, you would qualify for the Tinnitus 180 guarantee, where you would either reduce your tinnitus within 180 days under our guidance, or you'd receive all your money back. So we believe it's a really strong offer and really should make this an easy decision. If you are looking for help, you can trust our team. Nancy asks, are you with the sound therapy devices in the ears, as Nancy, you refer to as the quote earpieces sound thingies, which I love. That's how I talk sometimes too. With those sound therapy devices, you still can hear other sounds around you. So I still have it in my ear from earlier when I put it in. And essentially there's a rubber tip at the end of it that has some natural holes in it. And how that works is you can still hear ambient sound around you. You can still hear conversations the same as before. And you additionally have this soothing sound that's mixing in with your tinnitus and providing relief as a part of the program here. So no concerns at all about conversations or blocking your hearing. Also hardly noticeable, blends in with skin or hair color, and connects to iPhone. You can take phone calls through it. There's a lot of fancy features that come with it. So, we only pick the best devices for you guys. And those are the sound therapy devices through the Tinnitus 180 program. There's a lot of questions coming in, and I love doing this. So I'm going to extend the time here that I'm answering questions. I'll add another 5 minutes. My hope there is that some of you guys who are on the fence will take this extra time to go to the webpage, sign up for the $300 deposit. You don't have anything to lose. You'll have this conversation. You'll secure your spot with the deposit. You'll have the conversation with our team. Just confirm this is the right fit for you. Have a one-on-one, discussion where we can ensure everything is just as we need to see for you to succeed here. And then you start this program with the comfort that hundreds and hundreds of people have worked with us before and had success. And we've been refining our program every month, since we've been doing this over the last 4 years, since I started it, and it was just me. So hopefully you get some comfort in that, and you understand that the data we showed you is better than, and I can say this is what I've seen amongst any other product or program, is that our data is superior to any tinnitus focused product or organization that's available. So I'm really proud of that, and hopefully you see the value there as well. All right. If anyone in the Treble Health team wants to help me out with a question, you can drop it in the most recent chat. And I'm going to start with Tammy's question. So Tammy asks, how long are the devices under warranty? What happens if something goes wrong? So Tammy, generally speaking, the devices are under warranty for about 2 years. And if you're experiencing this with our devices right now, then reach out and we'll be able to help you. And someone on the Treble Health team can message you right now. If it's just a general question of the warranty, yes, there is a warranty. So if something's damaged, if something needs a repair for any reason, we have that covered. once you sign up for the program, you're in great hands. We're going to take care of you and take care of any other issues that might come up along the way. Nothing's going to stop us from getting you help. Janet asked, what about hyperacusis? So for those who don't know, hyperacusis refers to sound sensitivity. Sounds like, what often happens is that sounds like dishes clanking, water running, people's voices, they sound louder. In reality, they're not louder, but the way that the brain is responding to it is more intense. I call this like a migraine episode of the ears, where sounds are too loud and we're sensitive to them. Just like while we have a migraine, we're very sensitive to light. Well, the eyeball hasn't changed, right? It's the connection between the nerve and the brain. So for hyperacusis, it's a similar phenomenon where with the Tinnitus 180 program, we specialize in cases of hyperacusis as well. Half of our providers are very experienced with sound sensitivity cases. So Janet, if this is your primary concern, absolutely reach out. This is, as tinnitus specialists, hyperacusis is also our expertise. We'd be glad to help. If you wanted to sign up, you can do so at the link, and we can customize your program for hyperacusis. We do that for about 15% of our cases. If you aren't sure and wanted to have a conversation, this goes for anyone here, then you can head over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180. We'll drop that in the chat again as well. And you can schedule a free consultation where you can have a discovery call with one of our team members. I just went ahead and clicked that link there to show you guys what happens. So if you go ahead and go over to treblehealth.com/tinnitus180, then you'll go to a web page that looks like this, and you can review the details of what's included here. You can just review everything we talked about on our presentation, and then you can click the Shop Now button. That allows you to review the details here, where you can pay only $300 today, and then that's a refundable amount that gets you the conversation with the audiology expert. After that, our most popular payment plan is $308 per month for the next 12 months. Again, we accept only 10 new clients per week, and some of those slots are filling up for this week. So do your best to reserve your spot if you're interested. We guarantee results or your money back, as I said before. Some terms and conditions do apply. We do need you to show up to your appointments. We need you to complete the questionnaires that measure your outcome. Essentially, we need you to try. And if you try, then we guarantee results here within 180 days, or your full investment is returned to you. FSA or HSA cards are accepted. The whole package, the physical devices, would ship within a week. And you would have your first Zoom appointment with our team member as soon as tomorrow, depending on how you sign up. Click this button here, Start Now, for only $300. Just for those who didn't quite see that, I can go back and show you. Right here, Start Now for only $300. And this is where you would confirm the final payment here. This would just be that refundable $300, and that would get you signed up. Right after this page, you would schedule your call with the audiologist on my team, and we would get you set up with all the details and answer any of those remaining questions you have. Like I said, we know this is new to you, but to reserve your spot, the deposit will get you that call with the audiologist. If for any reason you decide to change your mind, then we can refund this $300, no problem. Let's see if there's any final questions that we have coming in through the chat. And for the 80 of us who are here between the Zoom call and YouTube Live, I want to give you guys a shout out. Arcade Heroes, Ahmad, Tammy, Bonnie, Francesco. You guys are great. I really appreciate the insightful questions. John, you asked, what brand hearing aids do you use? So John, whether we're programming the devices just for tinnitus or for tinnitus and hearing loss, we use a manufacturer mostly called Widex. So they're the leading tinnitus manufacturer. They've been specializing in tinnitus devices. So that's the one that our doctors recommend the most. And we use it within our program with a lot of success via telehealth. So I just wanted to answer your question there, John. Thank you so much. Tiffany, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Until next time, appreciate the love. Egan, thank you so much. Nice to know that I have a friend in Ireland, even though I am partly Irish. It's nice to know that we got to connect here. Bob, you asked, is the hearing test done at a local office? So Bob, if you've already had a hearing test, then we would use that hearing test and you wouldn't need to have any in-person appointments. If you've never had a hearing test and you wanted to start with our program, then what we can do is we can get you signed up and then recommend a local hearing test that meets our needs, and then review the hearing test result with you at various parts of the onboarding process. So most often, if you haven't had a hearing test yet, I would recommend signing up, speaking with us, getting started. And then in that first week of the program, before the devices arrive to your house, we would get the hearing test completed. We would use those results to program the devices. If you've already had a recent hearing test, we would help you get that copy or get that information, and then we would use it to program the sound therapy devices and give you appropriate care based on all of the test results you have, not only the hearing tests. Chris said, thanks so much. From the first phone call with you guys, my anxiety went down and I felt like I was in control. Chris is working in our program with Treble Health, and he's paired with Dr. Brienne, who's an amazing audiologist on our team. And he has a call with her tomorrow. So Chris, thank you so much. It's great to see you here. I'm glad that we can have this moment. And then we have a question. Is there a special offer for this, for this? So the pricing here, the pricing that you'll see is the best pricing we have available here for the Tinnitus 180 program. It's treblehealth.com/tinnitus180 with this new launch. That's the pricing we have available at launch. So you can find it out right there on the website, or we'll drop it in the chat for those who need another look at it. And let me take some time to shout out Danielle, who's our marketing manager at Treble Health, a big part of making this event a success. So I'm sharing a virtual round of applause, showing my love and my appreciation for you, Danielle. Thank you so much. Dr. Garrett Thompson, who's been very active in the chat. If you've had some nice conversations with him, he is not only a world-class audiologist, but also my brother. So that's really fun. Shout out to Dr. Garrett and all of you guys as well. Richard, Mike, Mama Bear, Faith, David, Bob, Alex, Rosemary, thank you, Ben. Thank you guys so much. Ben S, great to see you, and thanks for your great comments. Heidi, really appreciate it. Guys, just take some of this and put it into action. Like I always say, you can read and study about push-ups, but if you don't do them, you're not going to experience much changes. And tinnitus is very much a physiological condition, meaning if you do certain things, the sound therapy treatment, the cognitive behavioral techniques, the guided breathing, if you do these things, you're changing the physiology, you're promoting the treatment effect, which is what you want. But we have to do things, not only learn about how to do them. So take that advice and put it into practice. Reach out to our team and check your emails if you want more information on the Tinnitus 180 program, as we're sending some follow-up emails shortly. Thank you guys so much, and talk soon.